is going to have to be the quote-unquote religion of tomorrow. If it isn't, you're fucked. Totally and absolutely.
That probably is going to receive some pushback and some tug of war type shit. He tries it out on me. So,
Strategy.
it's a work. It's work, but he seemed to be having a really hard time in his community of people who he up until very recently agreed with on just about everything. Now they're not really seeing eye to eye. So he usually reaches out to me when he's working on a new equation.
In independent thinking is a laborious undertaking, and sometimes it can be lonely. You will be isolated from your tribe, and it's more of a demand to agree with everything now than anything that comes to my recent memory. So my heart goes out to him. That sucks.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
sucks when you got to choose between making the people around you that you love happy and acclimating to you and accepting of you, or following your conscience, you know?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy how easily that shit can happen too. You know what I mean? Somebody who you completely locked in with, you get some new information, and your brain, your mind changes a little bit, and then they're just like, "Oh, what the fuck are you talking about? You sound like one of them." And you're like, "Wait, what? I thought we were, I thought we were trying to fix this shit." But yeah, some people are so committed to the us and them situation, ain't no fixing it as far as they're concerned. But that's what
Yeah.
we're seeing a lot of now too, with everything happening with these, Trump supporters and shit getting put on lists, and the cancellation and all of that. This is coming from people who it seems like they just fundamentally don't want to fix shit.
Well, I mean, they don't want there to be any kind of plurality in thinking. Like there's a official dogma about what you can be outraged about, and you
Yeah.
have to subscribe to it and adhere to it with a great deal of care and precision, and deviating from it in any way could be a problem. And of course, there's no consistency to it, and I think that's what really frustrates a lot of people. But at this point, it's pointless to try to reason with people and try to get there, um, to try to talk them into being consistent or being fair. It's not going to happen. You just have to move forward, accepting that it is what it is at this point. This is where um, the people that influence culture have led us. There's enough people that are on board with it, or enough people making enough noise about it, that enough people are convinced that it really does have enough weight to affect your life in the real world. So you just gotta respect it, man. And I'm tired of the tribalism on all sides. Like even the way it's presented on the other side, it's so disgusting. Even
Yeah.
though I understand where it's coming from, and I understand the points that are trying to be made, but none of it's helpful. None of it's
Yeah.
helpful. So like when we touched on a little bit with El Presidente, I know we had talked about like the white cis white male under attack.
Right.
Google
Happy
happy
white
white
women.
woman,
I
and you
still
get
think
cuck
that's a
porn.
troll, bro. That's a troll. Somebody's fucking with people on purpose.
It could be right, and obviously um there's definitely an undeniable cultural um what's the word for it. It's like the default setting right now is something that is undeniably hypocritical and self-serving. So like when people talk about diversity, right, they're not talking about we really need different kinds of people or different thinking in different parts of society. People are talking about I need more of me in that particular field.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, there's not enough black people winning Oscars. There's not enough black people in this profession or that profession. You know what I'm saying? And invariably it's always somebody of that tribe advocating for more opportunity for someone in their tribe. Totally, a discussion about merit isn't even brought up, but you're not seeing anything with like somebody making that argument. Like there's not enough, black scientists or black reporters. There should be more representation. There needs to be, more black people in this industry or that industry. But those people aren't saying for diversity, like, yo, there needs to be more Koreans in the NBA. Koreans are
Right.
way underrepresented, you know? So I understand why people get in that sentiment, but this is the danger. And this is something I want to talk about too, because I started chiseling out some of the Google Docs again. And when I started to get on the Transcend and the Binary thing, I'm like, yo, we need to mine this more. I need more material for this chapter.
Yeah.
Because I was watching the other side of things, and it's so unhelpful and it's so ugly. Like, dude, there's this the level the level of outrage. So AIU, he's not available to the general public anymore. You got to pay for him. You got to pay for him now. He's behind the paywall because he got banned
Okay.
from everything.
Fuck it.
So, and I know that he makes some really sound arguments when he's pushing back against a lot of the nonsense of the wokerati, right? But the things that he fuels and the character with which he addresses a lot of the shit is so ugly. It so forces it like to be tribal. Like everybody's going and looking for stories like, "Oh yeah, fuck us." Okay, well fuck you. I'm going to find stories that make you look like a piece of shit. So like he posted a video about some dude that like he robbed I think it was a Popeyes chicken spot, but he robbed it just for chicken. Like he didn't take any money. Like he just
Oh.
robbed it just for the. So you already know. You already know. So
Yeah.
it's so yes, there's the legitimate point of anytime it's a black victim, you're gonna put that out there. But it's like in the newscast, he's like, you notice that they never mention that the robber is black. Now, this is a dude that's still on the loose. This is a dude that police are actively looking for. Any other time you're giving it a description, why don't you want to release the race of the assailant? Because you would do that in any other thing. Every news story is white police officer guns down black
Yep.
teen or white officer. So the problem is that everybody is trying to figure out how to get us outraged and hate each other or to be upset. And sometimes it's upset about legitimate things. But whether it's legitimate or illegitimate, it's all designed to keep us at each other's throat and to incite a response from us that's not helpful. Like
Yeah.
you pointing out the hypocrisy that could be helpful, but then you wanting to turn it into, well, you kind of want to say a fuck you to us. I accept the us versus them paradigm, and I'm gonna raise you a fuck whitey, and I'm gonna volley back to you. Somebody from your team robbed a place for chicken, so that's not a good look. So,
Maybe it's more racist to not say that description because we all know who that was.
but we shouldn't all know who that is. I think that's
But we
even
do.
more racist.
We do because if they would have said, and I don't know if this is right or wrong, but it's just like realistic, objective world probability. If somebody
There's a higher
says,
probability based on the numbers because it's an armed robbery.
and because they only took
But
the chicken.
I would argue, I would push back against that because there's not enough instances of that happening for me to be comfortable saying, hey, there's a precedent set. We
Right?
know
True.
when
True.
somebody
True.
robs a chicken place for just chicken and doesn't tighten up the register, then
Yeah, we
that's
don't have
definitely
no data to
right.
prove
There's
that
not
that's a black guy.
there's,
So,
there's not
but
enough.
But if, on the other hand, if somebody says, some guy was arrested today after he was 911 was called by his neighbors from a foul smell coming from his apartment, and when the police went in, there was 11 dead bodies. 3 of them were half eaten, and 2 of them.
Everybody's in the
So
freezer.
we
Yep.
know, we kind of know who that guy is. We don't have to assume. I think if anybody saw a black person in that mugshot on that news report, it would immediately devolve into conspiracy theory. They'd be like, they set that brother up. Ain't no way in the world, no way in the world he
You know
did
what?
that shit.
Get the dental records. Let's get the
Right.
teeth marks on the bodies and
Yeah.
compare them to some dental X-rays. There's no way.
But yeah,
And
that's pretty racist.
you saw the Pennsylvania snow video.
Yes.
The show. Okay. So first of all, this shit was horrible.
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 But par for the course. I felt like it was as horrible as it was, it didn't surprise me because I see so much of this shit and I know how on edge people are. We just talked about it. We just said people ain't playing no games out here right now. Everybody pissed off, and people take a lot of liberties with how you can treat motherfuckers on a regular basis. Like you talking shit to your neighbor, calling them names and stuff like that. Like that goes bad a lot. It goes bad a lot.
It does go bad, but I think I was so inundated with um uh the pushback from the right against identity politics becoming more identity politics, to where you're looking for can you imagine if a white person did this and how
Right.
bad to react, because that's all it seems to be. So there was a video of a dude that got shot by the police and a black dude's narrating, and it was a white dude, and he's like, yeah, that's what you get thinking you have privilege. So this is a dude who watches a police officer gun down this white dude who's armed with a stick. Maybe you could have tased him. I guarantee you if it was a black dude, it'd have been like, why didn't you tase him first? Why did you just... And he emptied the whole clip into his chest, so he was done. But then the black dude narrated, he isn't like, you see how these police are, it's fucked up. He was like, yeah, you're getting it now.
That's fucked up. That's horrible.
But of course, as it makes the rounds, the predictable analysis from everybody on the right is, see, you don't really care about police brutality, right? Because now this black dude becomes the representative for all of blackdom, right? So this becomes the universal opinion.
Of course.
Right. Which it's just so silly. But so with all of that and the chicken robbery and fucking people making jokes about or saying you can't make jokes about the girl that put Gorilla Glue in her hair and all, it's nonstop. How do we feel about it based upon race?
Who said we can't make jokes about her?
It was well, we could get into that later. Maybe
I was about to say, like,
you can, but it's not. Somebody had brought up a good point. Like, if it was a dude, I think it was Gavin McGinnis. He was like, "Look, if this was somebody from the Jersey Shore, like Pauly D or whatever, I never watched it. I don't know what the fuck their names are, but he's like, if somebody from the Jersey Shore did that shit, everybody would clown them." And he's like reading the Twitter feed, and people are like, thoughts and prayers with you. I'm so sorry this happened. There's like a GoFundMe. There's a lot of sympathy for her. So the argument is, if a white dude did that versus a black woman, there'd be a lot more clowning than sympathy, and let's raise some money for her, right? Okay. And either way, there's some fucked up shit about humanity. Like, we know that the internet clowns everybody, but it's almost like when we see the way that the expected mass internet response should be to suffering when it's a black person, we should apply that universally. That seems to be mass culture at its best. We try to be the most respectful. We try to be the most empathetic. And then we have no fucks to give if it doesn't meet the intersectionality criteria for whether we should have empathy. So with all that going on, and I know it's going to be fucked up, so I ask you to be patient and understanding. When I saw that video, the first thing I could think of is, it's horrible that they died. They all died for some stupid shit. There's no good people in this video. As far as nobody de-escalated, everybody got wrapped up in their ego. Everybody pushed it to the limit, and it's just fucked up. It happened in front of, I think there was kids that saw this shit. It's awful. So I feel horrible for the families. I feel horrible for the lives that were affected. But because of all the racial politics that have gone back and forth, I did have a smidget, a modicum of satisfaction in that here are some white people shooting each other to death over some dumbass shit.
Right, for nothing.
Just some stupid fucking hood shit. So all the data you could be, well, the 20-to-1 murder rates and all the statistics that get quoted, it's like, no matter how much you want to make it a race thing and we're different in propensity, whatever the trends may be, it's not an absolute and a guarantee. So whatever criticism that you can level, nobody is beyond it. So as much as much as people want to go to the go-to, look, people are killing each other in Chicago over some dumb shit, over ego. That is not exclusive to black people.
Right.
It's not an exclusive DJ Clue exclusive hit just for black people. White people can do that shit too. And I
Right.
felt I apologize, and maybe I should feel more guilty than I do, but I do feel bad that that was kind of my go-to thought, that there was, and nobody that looked at that video assessed it that way. Cause every time there's a black video of black people killing each other, that's always how it's. See, we keep getting shit as cis white males, and we're always the target, and people are making fun of us. But look at these black people killing each other over some dumb shit. But nobody I saw that analyzed that snow video was like, any criticism you can level against the hood of people murdering each other over some dumb ego shit, there's nothing you could say that's true about that situation and not true about this.
Right.
If anything, if you shoot somebody over some shit where they're talking shit, or maybe there's an underlining thing about a girl, or who's gonna be able to sell on this block, or whatever dumb gang shit may be involved, this was over fucking snow that's gonna melt away, and 3 people are dead because they wouldn't let go of their ego, and they're
Yeah.
fucking neighbors.
Right.
You So there's no economic disparity there. Obviously, you if you're able to live in the same neighborhood, you've achieved kind of the same level of like you're literally in the same boat. So there's nothing you could say that would be true about senseless black on black violence that you can't say is equally true about that shit. But nobody I saw that analyzed that video pointed that out whatsoever. So it just lets you know that everybody's looking at everything that happens, and nobody cares what really happened, or who's affected, or how we can heal, or how we can fix it. Everybody looks at everything through the prism of, how does this event empower my argument and prove my point? So lives are being ruined, people are dying, and everybody analyzes it from the perspective of, how does this prove my point? How does this further my argument? So
Yeah.
I don't think anybody is truly invested in any important way. I feel like at this point everybody's a fucking grifter. Everybody just wants your money. Nobody gives a fuck about you. Everybody wants to know what makes you outraged. They want to figure out what they need to tell you that'll help them monetize your outrage. And nobody gives a fuck about the fallout of the horrible things that happen. Nobody gives a fuck to cultivate a solution, or to try to hear anything from the other side. It is just non-stop point scoring, where everybody talks in a certain kind of language that it's very. I really feel like I'm an anomaly, and that I can go into both camps of ideologies. Like, I don't think most people are actually going and seeing what everybody is saying about the other side.
Right.
I feel
Yeah.
like everybody just stays in their bubble. And I don't like it. I don't enjoy either side. I can sit back and say, I know this person is right. They're mathematically right, but on their character and the reason why they're picking at this, or the angle that they're coming at, they're mathematically right, but they're morally wrong. Like, the reason why they're looking at this, why they're bringing it to your attention, why they're analyzing it the way that they are, it's to just continue to perpetuate the fuckery that's going on. And I absolutely am convinced this thing that we're creating right now, and the very first, the forward of the whole shit, needs to be that George Carlin quote, when he goes through basically how everybody's fucked. And he's like, look, you turn on the news, all they're gonna do is tell you about what makes us different. What makes us different? They're going to stress our differences. And it's a trick so that they could run off with all the fucking money. And let me tell you, they've got you by the balls. They own all the important land. They control all of the important institutions. They've got all the judges in their back pocket. There's nothing you can do. It sounds so hopeless. I don't think it is a hopeless message. I think that is the shit that people need to hear more than anything else, is that all these people that are trying to get your attention and trying to get you outraged and dedicated to their tribe don't give a fuck about you. Don't give a fuck about you. Don't give a fuck about fixing your problems. Have absolutely no desire. It's all about how your outrage and suffering can be the wind in their sails so they can get where the fuck they want to go. But they give absolutely zero fucks if you get anywhere you're trying to go. That is not factored in the equation whatsoever. And when I see the amount of energy that's invested into just being outraged over this shit and how predictable a lot of people's opinions are going to be based upon, what's going on in the culture, it's very disheartening, and it saddens me, but it also affirms for me that we're on the right track. That
Yeah.
we have to get out of this binary thinking of choosing sides and getting out of this fucking tribalistic shit, man.
Yeah.
It's at a fever pitch, and people are out of their minds, and it just continues to feed itself and get worse and worse.
Facts. I completely agree. I'm gonna tell you what my first because see, I think what's happening with the differences with a lot of stuff that we both see is that I don't tend to find the narratives that are attached to these things. And I get this because our libertarian friend hits me up sometime, and he'll be talking about stuff, and like he said something the other day. He said, with all this Tom Brady hate, it's like it gives you a mirror to what was the Colin Kaepernick situation. And I was like, people hate Tom Brady? Like, I had no idea. What are you talking about? But obviously, there's something going on the internet where all these people can't stand him. And then I kind of looked into that a little bit, and it's because he had a Trump hat. He had the MAGA hat in his locker, and I don't know how much of a Trump supporter he is, but I was like, oh, okay. So now I'm starting to see where that narrative exists. So I saw the video, but I didn't see anybody breaking it down, talking about what happened, giving their opinion on it. So, I just saw the video and then it was done with. But my thought process when I saw it was, this is why people, this is what happens when people think they can treat each other any kind of way. So I didn't factor in the race thing either necessarily. I just thought about how often people treat each other like this. And it just happens so much. People are just jerks for no apparent reason. And small things get escalated extremely fast when everybody's pissed off and upset and scared already. And there's so many things that's happening in society right now that may contribute to that situation that technically have nothing to do with that situation on both sides. They both could have been bothered about something that's similar. Like they maybe even agreed on a thing underlying that had their attitudes in the place that it was in, but they skipped that whole connection to beef with each other about some stupid shit, and everybody dies because of it. This happens in grocery stores, it happens in traffic. People just treat each other with so little dignity and respect. And if you measure that and couple it with everything that everybody's going through right now, I feel like shit like this is going to be something that we start seeing more and more often before people really not even either or. The only thing that's going to stop this shit is people just have to chill the fuck out. You can't talk to people any kind of way you want to talk to them. You can't call people any kind of names you want to call them and all of that kind of shit. And this is very similar to a conversation I had recently with somebody about white people using the N-word. There's a lot of black folks on the internet who are espousing this idea openly that, if I hear you say it or blah, 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 they want to like physically attack people for using words, and not like somebody calling you a name. Just saying the word in and of itself is enough to warrant like some kind of physical assault and shit like that. And I'm like, when you saying shit like this in public, you have to know that there's going to be people who prepare themselves and basically try to entrap you into getting yourself shot. There's somebody out here who's willing to get strapped and go ride the bus or the train and sing a 50 Cent song and just wait for you to do something stupid. And he's going to have the law on his side when it happens, unless they can prove, premeditated entrapment or some shit like that. But that was my first reaction. That's what I got from it, is people just treating each other horribly. And you absolutely right. Nobody's listening to the other side. Everybody has their own agenda, and it's usually connected to a social media presence or and having an opinion that gets you accepted by the in group. You know what I mean? I don't understand why anybody in the world wouldn't find somebody putting Gorilla Glue in their hair fucking hilarious. I don't know where you get to draw a line. With as much shit as we make fun of on the internet, people's children have died, and people make fun of them on the internet. Somebody will commit suicide, and they'll fucking go on this page where they know their parents or whatever are going to see it and call them all kind of names and say he was weak. Like, people have no respect for nothing. So why can't we laugh at a person who put glue in their hair? When did that line get drawn?
Because it's racist, and you're a racist
What?
if you laugh at it.
I laughed hard. No, okay.
Well,
Let me give you the full context, right?
I still consider you a very enlightened being, and I like you very much.
Well, I appreciate it.
And I don't mind that you're a racist. But the facts of the matter are that you are a racist.
Well, listen, hold
That's
on.
all.
I don't think. Last time I heard, black people can't be racist. So there's that. But
I'll check my privilege. I apologize.
you see how that works? But I'll give you the full context. I heard about it, so I watched the video, and initially I was like, what the fuck did you do, you goofy bastard? Like, that was my energy. Like, oh, you're so silly. And then when I saw her, like, she was seriously, stressed out. She was trying to hold it together. But you could tell she was just like, yo, what the fuck am I gonna do? when she did the little scratch move and it made the noise like a helmet, that's when it really hit me. Like, she really, really glued her fucking shit down in a way. Like, you're gonna need a whole new head at this point. Like, I don't know what they're gonna do for you. But there was some, empathy there. Like, it sucked that it happened to her. I wouldn't take the footage of her and make a meme out of it and laugh at it on some gif or something like that. But it was just as funny as it was tragic, and I didn't feel bad at all. I mean, because I figured it's gonna get itself fixed. Acetone and shit like that. I mean, it'll get fixed. She's not gonna die from it. So I didn't feel bad laughing about it. I had no idea that there was somebody somewhere making an argument that it was racist to laugh at a person who did something that's clearly dumb and her life's not being threatened.
Well, the disgruntled whites on the right side of the political spectrum are of the opinion that, and it's just more of those, if it was a white person, then so it's not necessarily that it would be racist to make. I don't think that's been explicitly stated.
Okay.
If you make fun of her, you're a racist. But because of the outpouring of sympathy and support that she got for doing something that was a really boneheaded move, you know what I mean? You put super glue in your hair. It's not the smartest move to make.
Right.
With the way that, like you said, the internet makes fun of dead children. I mean,
Right.
there's and not just kind of in a way within a chat, like independent of the people that are suffering. The internet seeks out the people that are suffering in the moment to make sure the joke lands there. That's how fucked up the internet is.
Right.
That's how cold and detached from basic human compassion the internet has allowed us to become. Because I think very few people that troll in that fashion on the internet would ever have the gall to show up at a wake and like crack jokes like that.
Right. It's an internet
know?
anonymity thing, and you technically, it takes a special asshole to put it in a place where the people who are suffering might see it. But most of it happens on shit like 4chan, in a place where they've all agreed to have dark humor and no boundaries and shit. So that's really who they're performing for. Most people don't want to troll and hurt a grieving parent or some shit like that. Like most people, there are some people who don't give a shit. But most people will use that situation to make their own sick community laugh at it. You know what I mean? So that it's a
Yeah.
little different. It's still it's still a dick move to technically, but you know, that goes under comedy, dark humor. Like you have to file that in a different place than
Yeah,
say
I'm
the
just
guy who believes Alex Jones. So he
right.
finds somebody whose kid went to that school and tells them they're lying, tell them to their face that they're lying
Right.
about the fact that their daughter died. That's different. That's a whole different level of asshole. Because I saw that. I saw a video where one of these Alex Jonesers, and I'm not sure if it's fair to call him that, but that's where I'm pretty sure that's where he was getting all his info from. And the guy was whose child, apparently died in this shit was just moving about around town, and son tracked him down and ran up on him with a microphone like some paparazzi shit. Why are you lying about your dead daughter? And you could see the frustration on the dude's face, like you probably wanted to kill him, but
Right.
what can you do? You know what I'm saying? Well, you gonna jump on this motherfucker and beat him to death, and then you go to jail too. But that's a special kind of asshole. That's different from people who troll shit online, in my opinion.
I mean, either way, I'm just sick of the energy. Like
Yeah, true.
I'm sick of the negative energy being such an integral part of like accepted and expected par for the course internet
Yep.
culture, and also just all the energy involved in if we were any kind of an enlightened group of human beings sharing this planet together, um none of that shit would matter for something like the fact that somebody did something stupid has because it can be ammunition for this culture war, it automatically becomes it. Right?
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
lady put glue in her fucking hair. In any other reality, that shit doesn't even matter. That's like a 5 second video you watch or a meme or something, like the little boy that like had laughing gas and was saying crazy shit in the back of the
Right. Right.
car. Or it's just one of those things like, wow, okay. And then you move on. Nope. This illustrates the racial dynamic in modern American politics and the double standard of the cis white male constantly under attack and I'm just fucking sick of it.
Yeah.
Stop. It's nonstop. It's everything. Anything that can be reached for this kind of shit, it is grasped onto. It's amplified. It's spread on. And again, I get it, but that's why there has to be an objective standard that you personally adhere to, right? That saves you, that keeps you from getting enraptured with one side or the other, because that seems to be where everybody is comfortable, and it is a little more murky, and there's more nuance, and there's more intellectual and moral responsibility to be independent from all this shit, and you will get it from both sides. That's why I think very few people want to do it. But it's something that more people have to advocate for and be violently resolute to do. Like under no circumstances, I'm not gonna let you bully me into this bullshit thinking. I'm not gonna let you, fashion shame me for being out of vogue with the popular opinion. Under no circumstances am I just gonna surrender my critical thinking so I can fit in with you on either side.
Right.
It's just and I see the pitfalls and the stupidity of both sides, and I'm just so exhausted by it. It's so ugly to me, and I really hate it when people who I find like the character with which they're wielding the information and the overarching aim of the point they're trying to make. I hate when I have to give people like that the credit to say, you know what, on this particular issue, they're fucking right. They've got the upper hand, or they've got the higher ground when it comes to making the intellectual and moral argument. But the reasons that they're making it and the agenda that they're lending their opinion to help serve, I find absolutely disgusting. You know what I mean? I
Right.
would I
Absolutely.
would much rather side with X, Y, and Z on this issue, but I can't because you're so crazy with some of the shit you're asserting. And I don't want to necessarily give credit to A, B, and C that's making the point that's undermining you because I hate what they stand for and the reason why they're even bringing this up. But I can't deny that what they're saying is more factual than the shit that you're saying. So there's no winners. We're all losers right now. We're
That's a fact.
all failing.
So what it sounds like is, and correct me if I'm wrong. This sounds like uh an attempt to reshape and reintroduce what some people would probably call political correctness. Because what we're essentially talking about here is coming to an agreement as a species to shun bad behavior in society. This is what we want. We want to get rid of this negative energy, this terrible shit, treating people like crap, laughing at tragedy. This is all stuff that people will probably say is in the realm of being politically correct. But I think the problem came because when people were trying to stop bad behavior in society, but the people who push back against it are assuming that uh, the bad behavior you're trying to stop is actually is something that you infringing on people's freedoms. So we don't want to live in a world where you can call people racial slurs or homophobic slurs and shit and get a high five from your friends. We'd rather live in a world where if you're sitting at a restaurant, you see two guys holding hands and you yell out a name and you call them a name, everybody else in the restaurant should be disgusted at you. And you should feel uncomfortable enough to probably just leave. Or the restaurant owner should be like, you know what, get out. You're not the type of people I want here. Now, the freedom infringement part comes because we've accepted that there are people in the world who really truly fundamentally enjoy hurting other people, calling them names, just being indecent in general. And if they truly enjoy that, who are we to tell them that they shouldn't? Right? So if we're talking about a consensus for humanity to throw this shit away, isn't that right back into the political correctness tug of war that we just not even out of? We still in it right now.
I think the problem is it's more important to be morally correct and culturally correct than politically correct.
Right. I think, yeah,
And,
just a misnomer in general. I don't know why they named it politically correct anyway.
well, because it lends itself to empowering political apparatuses, and the problem is it's the vehicle whereby we're arriving at that destination. So if we say we want to see these qualities within humanity and we get in the culture cart to get there, we're all agreeing on the terms, right? And we have an agenda that's pure. The aim behind what we're doing is understood when we build the car together and we agree to get in the car together and we agree on the destination of where it's going. Because you choose to be a part of a culture. With politics, these are the people that rule over you, right? These are the people that typically rule in America, I'd say 15 to 20% at the most, to keep things in such a way so that you're at least contented enough to not revolt. But I'd say 80 to 85% is just to completely prosper at your expense. And they don't really give a fuck about the fallout. If we have to go to war, if we have to bomb an American citizen, if we have to lie about yellow cake uranium, if we have to give AK-47s to drug cartels, if we have to give taxes cuts to people that have more money than God, and cut programs that help, we don't give a fuck, right? That's the game. And so the problem is we're having these discussions based upon tribalism for a game where nobody gives a fuck about us. Like they don't really give a fuck if the problem gets solved, and their track record tells you that they're probably not going to solve it anyway. So I can't get excited or give too much energy to say I want there to be political correctness, because the people that fuck us over and care about us the least, they should be the ones framing how we speak, how we think, what we can say. Because the history on that tells you that invariably that gets used to eventually put your political prisoners, or your political rivals in prison. It
Right.
eventually gives you license to round up groups of people that are the untouchables or the enemy or the whatever. However you want to frame it, the whoever is the us versus them, whoever's not the us, we get to do horrible things to the them. So that's what political apparatuses typically have ended up being. So I don't think they don't have the capacity or the moral animus behind them to actually achieve any results in defining how we discuss things or how we think. So we got to get out of the mindset that those problems are going to be solved within that political vehicle and stop having those conversations in a political contest. Cause look, or a political context. Cause look how many conversations got totally fucked up.
Yeah.
Totally, we're not even trying to get to the truth of the matter simply because we gave it um a political coat of paint. And once it got politicized, whether it's wearing masks, whether it's abolishing the police, anything where it's like we're talking about it in the context of it's us versus them, and so because I'm on this side, I have to conclude this about this particular issue. That's super dumb.
Yeah.
That's super duper dumb. And that's when you get situations where you have people that are talking about abolishing the police, saying, well, all the Capitol rioters need to go to prison forever. And you get situations where people say, don't you ever, disrespect the police. We back the blue. And you get them stomping on the American flag once they get brutalized for no fucking reason. Right?
Yeah.
So don't commit to anything based on tribal impulse. Commit to it based on principle alone, and fuck what the political tribe is on, because the political tribe is only there to capitalize on that moment so the political apparatus can have more power, not so that you are actually going to get what you want or get what you need, or that any of these fairy tales about democracy and the rule of law and innocent to proven guilty, all of that shit is a fairy tale. It's great when it works out. It's great when it's adhered to, but George Bush okayed waterboarding. People in Nuremberg got hanged for that, if I'm not mistaken. Barack Obama murdered an American citizen with no due process and no trial. Nothing happened to him. They're still trying to get fucking Trump in jail. So there's selective application. If you're one of them, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. If you're one of them, you're okay. And it's a political elite. But if you're not in that club, no, bitch, you're going to jail. Yes, you are. No, no,
Yeah.
no, no, no. The police are going to pepper spray you. They are going to beat you with clubs. And you can quote them the Constitution all that they want, all you want, but they don't give a fuck because they're not serving the Constitution. They're not serving these high ideals that you believe in and that you may adhere to. They're simply serving political power, simple and plain. And if they have the power to do it, they will. And it sounds cynical and fucked up, but in the 20 years as an adult that I've been paying attention, nobody in power has ever gone to jail for some undeniably fucked up shit that they absolutely aren't denying that they did.
Right.
Dick Cheney was like, fuck yeah, we waterboarded. Yes, they deserve to die, and I hope they burn in hell.
They built the
Brazenly.
system to protect themselves, and
Right.
everybody knows it, and everybody to some degree or another agrees to it. But why, I don't know. Maybe it's because they just trust them, and it's because the people who they claim, they've already sufficiently demonized the people who are getting the worst of the treatment. So it's very hard to advocate for inhumane conditions in prison, because the average human is going to be like, well, fuck those guys. I mean, what can, and that's not even a person who's evil or a person who's racist, just the average person. You'd be like, look, these rapists and these murderers are not being treated well in prison.
If
Who fucking
right.
cares?
If you are the belief that everybody in prison deserves to be there.
Right. So that's a whole different conversation, the justice system and everything else. But that's, you have to have, you almost can have that conversation independently of the condition of the prisoners. Because
Listen,
once you're in jail, you
yeah.
know what I mean? Once you're in jail, it's going to be hard to get people to, unless you're a white guy with a Viking hat and a Trump, face paint and shit like that. Because that guy can say, look, I'm not eating food that's not vegan. And they'll move him around until he finds a place that they can serve him the food that he wants, even though he's in jail for some pretty serious charges. It's a little weird, but you know what I mean? Unless you're that guy, it don't seem like you have too much say in what goes on while you're in jail.
I mean, they make that's not true because they do the same thing for Muslim prisoners. If you
Really?
gotta have like halal, yeah.
Oh, they'll
If you
feed them like the food that I didn't. I had no idea. I thought they
if
just had to eat whatever they eat.
if you got a good lawyer and you can make the argument, I mean, it's just they're not going to cater to you. But if you've got, it's just like anything within the justice system. If you got a lawyer to make the argument, great. But if you don't, I don't know that they're going to give a fuck. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm almost positive if you have a religious dietary um limitation or an observation, you observe a certain religious diet, um they have to, I don't know that they have to cater to you, but you have to have a way to be able to get your own food. So
Right.
I don't know. I don't
Well,
know.
I did see that also. I saw it held up in contrast to somebody who was. They said the article said he was denied water for 7 days or more than 7 days. Denied water for, and the guy died in jail of dehydration. So of course I had to, do the Googles and look into it a little bit. And apparently he was a mentally disturbed dude who was doing some wild shit in there. And I think he had already flooded 2 cells or something like that. So they turned off the water to his cell. And,
Oh my god.
once you've been bugging out, flooding shit, probably throwing feces and shit like that, and then they have to turn your water off. And, now a few days go by and you're probably somewhere closer to what seems like sanity asking for water. They're gonna probably resent, and this is just human imperfection. I'm not gonna um, assign any evil to the
No, but
people
that's
who did it.
criminal.
Yeah,
Nah, nah, nah,
absolutely.
nah, nah. I'm gonna say that's inexcusable. A human being, I think, after 3 days of no water, you're in danger.
No, I'm just
So
saying after it wouldn't take much. I'm not saying that they didn't fuck up. I'm saying it wouldn't take much for the average citizen. If you were in that situation and you saw a guy throwing poop and flooding his cell for a week or two, and then you got to turn off the water to his cell, and then a couple days later, now he's not crazy no more. He's like, yo, I'm thirsty, I need some water. The average person would be like, oh, now this motherfucker knows how to formulate a sentence and ask for something with some sense, right? That don't mean you let him dehydrate and die, but I understand the sentiment of being like, yo, this fucking guy's crazy. Fuck him. So you add that to a couple different shifts of people who may not know he didn't have water for 3 days, and like I totally could see how that shit would happen with that backstory. If you already in there bugging and flooding shit out, I totally could see how that would happen.
nah, man, that's criminal. That's criminal negligence.
Yeah, for sure,
You
one
you
hundred
you may
percent.
not, you may not get charged with murder or even manslaughter, but everybody on that shift that interacted with him that didn't bring him a fucking bottle of water, like not only are you a shitty human being, I mean, because even if your enemy needed a bottle of water because they were dehydrated, right? I mean, you know what I'm saying? They're not actively trying to kill you. I mean, you got
Yeah,
to have a special kind of just a fucked up, indefensible disposition that you would deny. I mean, it's literally the most basic need. You could go 30, 40 days without food. You're not lasting too long without water. To
yeah,
deny somebody the most essential component of fucking existence knowingly, just because the person was an asshole to you on some ego shit. And I
yeah,
think,
definitely.
and you framing it the way that you did, the average, you might be right, but that just tells me that whatever's in store for humanity, if the Babylonian cabal of the Illuminati is going to take over, or if God's going to show up and just wipe everybody out, or there's aliens and they've decided that we've it's time for a cancellation. We're canceling the reality show called Earth. Whatever you think is good, it's completely justified. If that's the average, people deserve to rule at our expense and to fucking turn us into Soylent Green. If
Yeah,
that's the average.
yeah,
If that's the average, I hope there's a God and I hope he wipes us all out. If that's the average, if that's the baseline humanity, then when the aliens show up and they say, "Oh, cool, this is what you do with the lower creatures. You got all these animals on meat hooks. Guess what we're gonna do with you as lower life forms? We absolutely deserve it. There's no excuse. There's no excuse for any of us that's the average. Because even with that Pennsylvania snow shit, um, I have admitted on several podcasts that I'm a complete piece of shit. There's no scenario in which I'm shoveling snow and my neighbor says, "Hey, fuckface, don't put snow up on there." And I'm going to tell him, no, fuck you. I'm going to put the snow wherever I want. Whether I know he has a gun or not, whether he's smaller than me and I can beat him the fuck up, right?
Right.
I'm going to say, "Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. I'll put it over here." There's nothing in me that would
Right.
feel like I gotta call that dude. I gotta be disagreeable over some fucking snow. So if that's where we are, fuck you. I'm gonna put the snow wherever I want. Fuck you. I'm gonna blast you with pistols and come back with the rifle because I had shitty aim and I gotta make sure I take you off of here. I'm gonna deny you water because you flooded the fucking prison. Yo, send the fucking comet. Just
Yeah.
send it.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. It's no excuse, but this is where we've devolved to. We accept it. You know what I mean? We accept it because to make assumptions about it, there are political and ideological positions that can't even decide if morality is useful or not. That's a real conversation taking place right now. Is morality some religious colonizer ideology? And I'm like, you can't even say whether something's objectively good or bad, i.e., our buddy, or slave labor versus people getting together to make a product on their own. Like, you can't even objectively identify one of those as a better situation for the world because of our relationship with these words and these concepts. They think this shit belongs to other people. There's colonizer math.
But
There's
shouldn't
math that belongs to white supremacy.
but shouldn't that be clear, undeniable evidence that these themes being injected right into our psyche and that have become a part of our pseudo intellectual discourse? Shouldn't it be clear that they are just being put there to muddy the conversation, to make everything pointless? These aren't tools to get us to a good destination. Like, they're to me, they're purposely there to sabotage our thinking and to
Right.
poison the conversation.
Right.
When in the name of pursuing higher thinking, or a more sophisticated level of intelligence, and you're waxing philosophical, and this is, I understand, if you just graduated high school, or you just barely got through a night school, you probably don't have the capacity to deal with these high level abstractions, these lofty, it's beyond you. So allow me to explain to you why morality is colonization. Like, okay, you could probably make an argument that sounds okay, but once we take what you're saying at face value, and we don't say, okay, somebody, probably China, is poisoning our universities with just fucking dumb ideas that give us tools to get us nowhere, right? Let's say I adopt it. Okay, now what? Okay, you've convinced me. Morality is white supremacy. So immorality is what?
Right.
Like, it, because now I feel like we're getting three times as racist, and like we amplified all the racism by trying to come up with this ridiculous shit that, like, it gets us right back to. So we took these intellectual tangents, these scenic routes to conclusions in the name of overcoming racism, just so we could have all these extra steps to get us to a conclusion that's 10 times as racist. So
Right.
if black and whites are polar opposites, and white supremacy is morality, that sounds like the
Immorality
black
belongs to
default is
everybody else.
criminality, right? So that's what it is.
That's
That's
exactly what that's what it
right.
devolves into.
And in any other context or any other conversation in any sane error, right? That would be dismissed as, even by the people who are talking about black murder statistics and all that other shit. Very few of those people that are publicly making that argument, right, about FBI crime stats and all that shit, would say that, oh yeah, absolutely. If you're black, your default setting is criminality and violence. Very few of those people would. Now there are some, I won't deny that, but very few of the ones that are publicly making that argument would even make that step. They would make the argument to say the real issue in America isn't white police officers killing black people. That statistically, there's just not enough evidence for the order of magnitudes we're describing of issues that's being caused. So they're bringing up the numbers and everything just to kind of make the argument. Well, there is violence, there is people getting murdered, but it's not based on the dynamics that you're using for political expedience. But most of them are using that to just say, hey, we're shifting our focus away from dealing with the real issues. Yes, there's real issues. I don't know exactly how we can fix them, but we're not even going to be able to assess them correctly as long as we're dealing with this misinformation. That's what most of the people are doing. But most of them are not saying, oh, yeah, and by the way, this is just how they are. It's undeniable. And yet you're giving me some really lofty ideas and you're couching it in really professorial language to basically get me there. To basically get me there. That's some shit. There's no baby in that bathwater. We can just throw the whole fucking thing out.
Right.
There's nothing of value there.
Yeah, if we can't even agree that there are things that will make human life objectively better and things that'll make it objectively worse, and we should pursue the things that'll make it objectively better and avoid the things that'll make it worse. Like, if that's not a foundational agreement as a species, what else do we even have? If you can't accept morality as an overall positive, now I get that morality becomes objective and situational ethics and all of that. I accept all of that too. I think the best. I had never really thought about it until I heard that whole the idea of if somebody's having a seizure outside and you're in front of a pharmacy that's closed, is it immoral to break the window of the pharmacy and give that person an EpiPen to save their life? Even though you're destroying property and technically stealing, it's situational ethics. Would that be acceptable? Should you go to jail for the same amount of time as a person who just wanted to steal the EpiPen? Like that's a discussion that has to be had. Of course, we would have to hash that out with humans. So I get the idea that this is not some hard, fast rule and that's always the same no matter what. But we gotta agree on something as a foundation for human. We just have to, because if you don't agree that we benefit from morality, then what's fine? What's bad? Like, if there's no morality, what do you do with a person? What do you do with a serial rapist? I, I don't know how to even begin to build anything, to build any type of bridges or engage with somebody who doesn't accept that morality is beneficial. I feel like I can just write. I feel like I just want to write you off and kind of put you in a folder where I just leave them over there. Don't worry about it. Because I mean, where do we even begin a conversation with those kind of people? And like you said, that you hit the nail right on the head. It's these concepts, they take on people, they get grafted onto people and they chew on it and they do these mental gymnastics to make it make sense. And before you know it, it's a concept that belongs to them. It's their own ideology now. And if other people don't understand it, you get to put yourself in a position of superiority because you're so highly evolved in your thinking that you see equations that other people aren't ready to look at yet, and blah 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 blah. And then we end up fucked because the practical application of the shit that you're talking about only ends in chaos and destruction. It's literally put there to poison the conversation. It's given to people who have too much time on their hands to think way too deeply about some shit that should just be a surface level no, slide it right off the table and look at the next piece of data. But when they got too much time on their hands and they're coming from a place of wanting to deny colonizers, wanting to deny white supremacy, wanting to, kind of push that shit to the side, then if you attach a concept to white supremacy and you say it belongs to that, then you'll throw out that concept because you think it has a relationship to something that you hate anyway. I just don't know how to start a conversation with those kind of people, or if a conversation should even be started with them. Probably not.
I think for the most part, the way forward is to, within yourself, to be your own architect. and decide from the ground up how you're going to build yourself. Just like, in the beginning, God spoke the word and brought everything into creation. This is what we should be all doing with our minds. We should be organizing our minds in such a way that they're not the byproduct of all of the shit that's being foisted upon us, because ultimately it's all attached to an agenda. And like you said, our it's beyond situational ethics, right? Because there's an underlying um morality in that scenario that you gave, in that yes, the destruction of property is wrong, yes, thievery is wrong, but the preservation of life is more important, is going to trump. So you would still come to that conclusion, even though there's laws that would tell you that what you're doing in that moment is wrong. If you've already determined within yourself and in your own thoughts, and you've built up your character and your perspective in such a way that you've ascribed a value to everything, then that's not a hard decision for you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's not even a question. Of course I'm going to break the window. Of course I'm going to steal the EpiPen and save the person's life. And if you're going to be really righteous about it, if it's that big of a deal, I'll pay for the window and the EpiPen. And I'm sure, because most people aren't complete pieces of fucking shit, I would assume in that scenario, even humans at their worst, both people, the store owner that was victimized and the dude that had the seizure, would both be like, we'll cover the costs.
Right. Right.
We're not going to be like, well, you broke you know what I mean? Like, just picture the dude you just saved his life as well. You broke the window.
Right.
Like, you stole the EpiPen. That's on you. And the owner colluding with him and being like, yeah, you definitely owe me that, B. You fucked up
Right.
my shit. I need that EpiPen $750, and you don't have that on your insurance because you can't get a pre-auth for that. You don't have that disease, so
Right.
you got
Yeah,
to
it
pay
makes
for
sense.
that
We
out of
want to
pocket.
we want to hope that humans would do the right thing,
We
but
would
then when
want
we
to,
zoom out and we look at people fucking murdering each other over where you throw the snow.
but that's because of the poison. That
Yeah.
don't you see?
Yeah.
Like, these are people who have been poisoned with poison thoughts, with these it's a lantern in their little maze of a brain that's always guiding them to a dead end, right? So if you've never figured out how your brain is wired within yourself, yeah, whatever agenda is thrown upon you, or whatever the culture says, you're just going to be led about. So I think that these people, they're on the kind of their default setting. I don't even think they're conscious pilots of their ship. I just kind of feel like most people are, they don't they don't even reflect and build this kind of thing within themselves, this like moral infrastructure that informs their decisions. It's kind of like, if I can get away with it, I will. If it serves me, then it's of interest to me. If it brings me pleasure, then it's of interest of me. It's of interest to me. But beyond that, I don't really need to do any kind of self-reflection or cultivation within myself. It's not of interest, I think, to most people. So they are going to be ultimately whatever the operating system update is, whatever popular culture says it's going to be, whatever the value system is of the culture, and then everybody kind of links up to that, and then works within the framework of, I'm going to operate within these accepted bounds, completely compelled by self-interest. Like, it's really the difference between men and beasts, like an animal is completely driven by instinct. We're supposed to be a little more involved in that, and that while we recognize that we have these animalistic impulses and instincts, they're supposed to be tempered through our morality and through our will. You know what I mean? And then we have to have all these rules for the masses at large, because if you don't put all of these bumpers to govern their behavior and kind of bottleneck their choices, they will behave in such a way that they will get the earth flooded again. They will have their
Yeah.
minds perpetually on just fuckery. There will be savagery, there will be murders, there'll be that alpha shit that you described, like, all right, well, I'm gonna have to just murder you and take your girl then, because I'm big enough to do it. And
Right.
everybody will flex whatever skill set that works to their advantage, and everybody will be, And I'd like to think that if you took the reins off of humanity so that they're not exploited by all these other interests that help keep us in order but live at our expense, that we would be okay to just get along within ourselves. We won't be. We're not there yet. That's what I'm saying. You have to get in the culture car. You have to get in the culture mobile. You have to decide what the destination is. Fuck what everybody else is doing. Everybody else is going to be continuing to wade in the fuckery, and they'll be led about. Well, whatever Twitter tells them to be mad at, that's what they'll be mad at. Whatever the news tells them to hate, whoever they're not supposed to like, but they're never going to solve any problems. They're never going to have any consistency. They're never going to be fair. They're never going to apply the law evenly. People will always be selectively targeted. People will always be the selective objects of outrage, depending on if they want to get wiped out or not. Like if they haven't decided that you're canceled, you can get away with shit that other people have gotten canceled for, and it's for way less egregious. But it's not about what you did; it's about how the standard's going to be applied, and it's never going to be consistent. So there's nothing of value to mine from what the status quo has become. You have to decide this is fucked up. Neither side is making sense. Neither tribe really has the moral high ground in their pursuits. The path forward for humanity is determining within yourself what's valuable, what's important, and if you haven't decided that, to the degree that your actions can ease human suffering, is an important question to be asking. I think those are the people there's no point in having a conversation with,
Yeah.
because really we could work with anything else. But if that question is of paramount importance to you, how can I live my life in such a way that I'm causing the least amount of suffering to the people that I share the planet with? Then everything else we can figure everything else out. We can answer those big questions, we can craft solutions, but as long as that's not on the forefront, if the main aim is just to point out, well, you're twice as racist as me. I want to own the libtards. If
Right.
that
Yeah.
if that's the extent of it, if that then is no point, because you're not really asking the important questions of what needs to be governing our decision making. And really, because I like the way that you frame a lot of this shit in terms of healing. The Hippocratic oath, first and foremost, do no harm.
Right.
Whatever. So when you're assessing the ills of humanity and you're trying to find some of the cures for this shit, like that's got to be, it's the same kind of approach. To the degree that I can try to address this shit, but if we're just solving problems, right, um by making one group of for one group to suffer at the expense of the other, that's not justice. That's not a real solution. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
facts.
It's
Yeah.
like, hey, we don't have slavery in America anymore, but we still get things cheap because we just have slavery overseas. But
Right.
look, now my group isn't the main one suffering now.
Right.
So that's great, right? Like,
No, that's not
no.
enough. It's actually counterproductive because it proves you're a hypocrite and you don't really care about freedom and well-being, just your own. You know what I'm saying? Or the people who identify with you. And that's why the framing has to be around healing, because none of this shit happens in a vacuum. All of us are dealing with shit that, and a lot of us don't even understand it, but all of us are dealing with shit that's not even of our own choosing. I just saw something, a TED talk the other day, where somebody was talking about the county that you were born and raised in has an effect on your earning potential as an adult. Like, how crazy is that? People, even if you move, like if you spend your formative years in this certain place, even if you move and go somewhere else, that has such an effect on your psychology that it can change the way or how much you can earn later on as an adult. We're dealing with shit that up until 10 years ago, people weren't ready to have those type of conversations. The data might not have existed. like it does now, but generational trauma, epigenetics, a lot of the shit that people consider soft to talk about, or they think it's, woo shit, or it's an excuse. It's actual facts on how people are processing this stuff. Nobody's gonna kill you over snow, right? So this is not about that. That's not about snow. It's about a whole lot of other things, a long line of processes and shit like that that get ignored over time. Men are dealing with shit that's specific to male consciousness. Women are dealing with shit that's specific to feminine consciousness. White people are dealing with shit. Brown people are dealing with shit. Gay people are dealing with shit. And we've all fractured ourselves so much that we're separated. We don't see that everybody's dealing with shit. We just see our own struggle, and then we undermine what everybody else could be going through too. And it sucks, but it's just a product of living in the world that we live in, living in a system that doesn't really leave room for those kind of conversations to take place unless you're paying somebody $150 an hour to listen to you talk about how your mom didn't hug you enough. And not everybody's in a position to do that, so you're left with dealing with it however you deal with it. And then we take into account, and these are all little pieces that people would say don't matter. Oh, it don't matter what movies and shit we're watching, and how those characters in those movies deal with each other, or TV shows. All of that shit imprints itself in our brains, all of it. And if we're not focused and fully functional with how we take that shit in and deal with it, then it gets insidious, and it can lay roots in your brain, and it can come out in your physical actions in the world when you're dealing with people, especially in stressful situations. Nobody thinks that. I remember as a teenager going to do dumb shit, and it was a lot easier to go do dumb shit if you turn on some Mob Deep or DOS effects on the way over there, because of this frequency that shit gives out in the atmosphere. You probably would change your mind about doing dumb shit if the whole ride there you was listening to fucking Will Smith's first album. If you listening to the Fresh Prince, y'all probably would never do that shit. But if you listen to fucking MOP, somebody might get their head kicked in at the end of the night. It's just what it is. We don't want to. A lot of us don't want to accept the influence that it has, but it does have an influence, and people are suffering bad. People are suffering real bad, and the worst part is a lot of people who are suffering completely deny or discount the tools and the mechanisms that would alleviate their suffering. We live in a world right now where things like meditation, it can still get laughed at. That's some bullshit. Smart motherfuckers, smart people who be like Joe Rogan and shit like that. Be like, oh, just burning sage and candles and shit. That's all woo. It's like, it's managing your atmosphere, first and foremost. Second of all, there's a lot of other scientific framework that fits into things like crystals and all of that shit that you can't just throw away. It's real shit. And then we factor in the placebo effect and all this other stuff. Real healing takes place with those under those kind of circumstances. And the fact that we can still brush it off the table and throw it away is a detriment to the entire species, bro. The fact that people are doing yoga and that's looked at as some kind of bougie fucking, all the soccer moms in California paying $200 for yoga pants, like that trickles down to the consciousness of a person who thinks yoga is no longer for them now because it's been co-opted by blah blah blah. And it's just fucked up how we're processing this stuff. The whole web is connected, but we refuse to see it. We just fractured ourselves so much that we all have retreated to our own little dark corners, and it's making us worse. We don't give a shit what's going on with nobody else, and it's acidic. It's fucking us up.
Well, that's why it's so important to transcend the tribalistic identities, because it basically boxes you in and guarantees your destiny. If you say to yourself like, I'm a black dude from the hood, yoga's not for me. That's some white soccer mom shit, right? All of the benefits that you get um in calming your spirit and focusing your mind, the health benefits from stretching out your body, what I'm saying? It may put you in a completely different vibe, right? But if you're locked in first and foremost, like my physical attributes, well, the place that I was born, all of these things that externally has nothing to do with who I am and what I think, but basically this happenstance. Think about the amount of weight we put on when we think about the possibilities of what we can or can't do, or what we should be into or not be into, based upon where we were born and what we were born. Shit that doesn't have any, it's influence zero, literally zero by us. We have absolutely no hand in that. It's happenstance. Like I was thinking about that when we were talking to GFK, um, the Gadsden Flag Killer. He'll want to be known as something different
The
soon enough.
Gadsden Flag
So
Killer.
the Gadsden Flag Killer.
Rob did the tangents.
And so, something he said that struck me, and we got to have him back on, because I did a bad job asking him questions, because I would have really liked to have mined more the specific events that he went through that kind of got him to that conclusion, and got into that more than we did. But with the with him saying, like, I know I'm Dominican, and but I grew up around Italians, and this is, but just that whole thing, because I remember going through it too, like, oh well, I'm this or I'm that, so therefore, but it really is silly and stupid, especially when you see the shit that these people that are on that I'm just supposed to be on, right? Like, my uncles are assholes and they treat women like assholes, but I'm Dominican and they're Dominican, and so
Right,
I
right.
guess that's what I am. It just becomes so silly that we all have to think within that framework, and we're kind of trapped. And like, your first part of life, and some people never break through it, but like, that's really a struggle for most people, is to come to terms with what you are and what that is and how that integrates into your community and your society as a whole. And I've always thought that shit is fucking dumb. It's always bullshit. And there's a lot of things that will reinforce the need for that. And people will give you really well thought out arguments about the very nature of tribalism, and this is natural, and birds of a feather flock together, and this is just how human beings are. But human beings also, like I said, by way of our humanity, transcend many of those primal instincts. I'm totally willing to accept that we are wired to be biologically tribal, and that our piece of land and our skin color and our culture and our nation and all these things are somewhat hardwired in to our genetic impulses, right? Well, so is fucking. And if you take the fucking impulse to its most aggressive and violent end, we all become rapists. And there
Right.
was a time where that was pretty much courtship for conquering tribes on it. So I don't want the logic to be, well, since it's an impulse that's hardwired into our biology, therefore it informs us in a good way. Like, no, we have the ability to temper it and channel it and apply it in a productive means. So I'm willing to accept that it's a part of our makeup, but it's not one that we have to be so dedicated to the point that we just start making dumb decisions and accepting these dumb ceilings for our potential based upon what we've decided we are, surmised completely by biology and geography. That shit just seems really limiting and silly to me. Like,
Yeah.
the shit you've been on with the vibrational tribalism, that's the higher frequency of what that impulse should be. So all of the trappings that can come about, because if you're totally on the biological shit or the geography shit, your tribe may want to go and do some horrific shit. There was a lot of Nazis who were just following orders. That's the problem with just being a part of a group based upon, well, I'm German and I'm in the Nazi party, so I guess I got to put bullets in heads and toss people in ovens. I guess it's just what we got to do. Versus being a part of, it transcends geography, it transcends biology. It's a set of principles that we're all adhering to. And there's never a case where the loyalty of the tribe is going to force me to violate my conscience and my dedication to principles.
Right.
So we accept principles of, I gotta be poor and it's a moral thing. That's the righteous thing to do. because anybody that makes money is evil. Well, I can't have that kind of job. I can't be into reading those kind of books, because people from my tribe wouldn't be into that book, or I might get ridiculed, or they may start looking at me funny. And it's funny too because I would say Eugene probably is very and based upon the way he self-identifies. I don't want to disparage or misspeak in any way, but he he has a lot of ambiguous things to his identity. So you would think he would have the most latitude to kind of be free in his thinking, right? That there would be a lot more liberty, but no. No, you have become a part of a tribe that there is no animus behind it, any value system that puts a high price on exploring new ideas, being open minded, having the ability to not change your moral compass, and still have a set of principles where you want to do the right thing, but it doesn't necessarily have to be framed in this dogma, But no, you can't do that. It's really about escaping all of these other tribes that are forced upon us, that
Yeah,
that trap us.
I agree. I think with people like we were like bringing up Eugene, people who they should have the most range to be free thinkers because their whole foundation is an antithesis to the thing that we've been given. So they're looking automatically outside of the system. Even if the things within the system are good, they're not going to accept that they're good until they've looked outside the system for better alternatives and everything else because they're primarily against the system as it is right now. So it's hard for them to accept anything in it as being good, right? Which is why money and capitalism and all that, they don't see any good in it at all because it belongs to the system. And also, a lot of people in that space are coming from deep, unresolved traumas, right? So the acceptance of the group really matters. It
Mm.
matters a lot because you've abandoned everything else when you decided to operate outside the current paradigm. So what else do you have other than the other people who you think have abandoned the same paradigm? But all they did was create a new system in for outside of it for ostracization and everything else, the othering and all the stuff that they complained about from within, within the mechanism, within the system. They identified all these things that they saw as hateful and damaging and destructive, and then they went outside of it, created their own cliques, and applied the same principles,
Hmm.
which is absolutely mind-boggling. But we all do it. It's not just that, we all do it to a degree. I can tell you 5 things off the top of my head where there's a handful of people I know for sure who would think me doing any of those things makes me less black, or me enjoying one thing or another, or not enjoying one thing or another makes me less black. Now, how? I have absolutely no idea how the mathematics works on that. I have no idea how the math works where if you have this opinion, that means your blackness is in question. I don't know what kind of opinion aligns with blackness. Oh, and what even is that, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? What is it? Is it my ability to dance on the 2 and the 4 rather than the 1 and the 3? Like, what are we talking about? What are we calling blackness? What are homosexual politics? What is any of that shit that people think belong to them because of how they're aligned? And do we not all have something that's a go between? Do we not all have a common thread just as humans existing on the planet? Don't we all have a common thread of what the things that we would be moving towards and the things that we would be moving away from? I mean, isn't that some place we could? It seems like a place we could align ourselves with each other because I feel like us all existing in the same atmosphere would kind of dictate that we all agree that some things are better than others. And if we agree that some things are better than others, why is it that pursuing the things that are better can be broken up into subgroups where this is good for those people but not for those people? And I don't understand where that takes place in actual practical reality. I see where it takes place in ideology and in politics and social constructs and shit. But I don't see how that comes out in real life with real people.
Very few instances. There are some dietary things and medical things like with blood sugar and
Right, right, yeah,
cholesterol and stuff like that, but that's about it.
yeah,
That's about it. And that's just like you can identify as a man, you can identify as a woman, but at the end of the day, if you go in for a testicular cancer screening or a
right,
pap smear,
yeah,
at the end of the day, fuck what you feel like. You
right,
are what you are. So there are some biological realities about what we are, but what you're talking about is the zeitgeist of authentic blackness. And
right,
it wasn't created by black people. It was created by political devices. It's the exactly why I said the whole shit is poisoned. The political correctness, exploring any of this kind of shit in a political context already poisons the conversation beyond redemption. It's there's no point because there's been a decision made for political expedience what constitutes authentic blackness, and it contradicts itself in real time. It's in flux. It's always some shit, like just like you said about, well, would be that for the dude that robbed for the chicken. Like there's certain things, it can absolutely be the same substantive idea if it comes from a black person or a person that's considered an ally, like they're down with shit. They could say the exact same thing in affirming something as being a part of that collective authentic blackness. But if the wrong person cites it, like they're making a point and they're using your historical proclamations as the bibliography for the accuracy of their thought, because that person is wielding that idea and referencing the same substance you just affirmed, in their hands it becomes racist. So yes, uh as far as like dancing, if a white person cite something, along those lines, yes, it's absolutely racist. But if a black person cites something like, that shit is kind of corny, black people, when we dance, we have a lot more flavor and soul than that. We wouldn't just be, kicking our legs up or holding hands going around in a circle. That shit is ugh. No, we would. So it's kind of a thing, like, and it's so simple and it's so dumb and it's so juvenile, but so much weight gets attached to it, and it's something that is very, that doesn't matter, right? Who can dance and who can't dance. There's very few problems in life that are going to be solved by our ability to dance or not to be able to dance. Like in the things that we're talking about solving and the problems that we have, that's like that conversation doesn't matter. Is this dude racist because he referenced dancing? Is this dude not racist because he referenced dancing in the proper way, in the politically correct context? That shit doesn't matter. That's not solving any problems. But you've taken that dynamic and attached it to big shit like, should we invade other countries? Who should we give tax breaks to? Who should we listen to? And who should be labeled as conquering our own negativity? Who becomes completely ostracized and for what ideas? And so when you frame it that way, like, yeah, you get instances where you got somebody like Larry Elder talking about school choice, and I forget what credit card company there was. It was some kind of advertisement. I can't remember what it was, but they referenced like this charter school in Harlem, right? And the guy that was on the commercial, he was the director. He was a black dude, and it was showing like all the kids and they're in ties and it's super professional, and they're talking about like the success rate and all that shit. So you see something like that that's undeniably successful and is helping black people, but because the concept has been attached to whiteness, it's a Republican idea, and Republican has come to represent whiteness. It's team white, and Democrats are team black. Now, no black person is allowed to just evaluate it based on the merits, right? Well, does this charter school work? Is this helpful? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's not authentically black. Therefore, we can't be a part of it. We can't indulge it. We can't acknowledge it whatsoever. We got to put it in the white people shit box. Like,
Right.
okay, this is some white people shit. Let's put charter schools with yoga and a low sodium diet, and according to the African History Museum, being on time and linear thinking and all this other shit. Like, that all goes in the white people box. Well, what if it actually helps us accomplish some of the shit that we're trying to accomplish? Doesn't matter. What would you rather do? Be authentically black, or to be succeeding in solving problems you say you care about? What's more important to you? Okay, well, when you put it like that, then I guess, yeah, fuck that shit. Who cares? Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. You're right. So it's a petty, dumb, childish, trivial way to interpret the world and to frame conversations, and it 100% regulates the parameters of conversation and defines the terms in which we're going to have any of these conversations when it's in popular culture or politics. And at this point, politics has become popular culture. Everybody has been politicized.
Yeah.
So it's a poisoned well. There's no point in dipping your bucket down in there. Like, hey, is there any rational, honest people out there? No. Take your bucket, go to a different well. There's nothing in that well. The people that are worth trying to talk to and build with have already seen the need to get out of that well.
Mm.
You don't need to talk them out of it. You don't need to, hey, Timmy, are you down there? Are you trapped in the well? You don't need to have that conversation. They're already like, yo, I'm in a fucking well full of poison. I'm in a well full of crazy people who are having pointless conversations, solving nothing, and smelling our own shit and patting each other on the back that we've all agreed the way that we should. So we're good people. But we've affected literally zero change. Nothing is
Right.
fundamentally changed. So what is the fucking point of having the conversation in that context? Fuck the PC shit. Fuck the popular culture, political context to frame any of this shit. Like, the moment you engage that debate and it's framed in those terms, you've already lost. The battle's lost. You're not going to be able to make a rational point in that context because the rules aren't fair. It's not really seeking to analyze the truth or the substance of any given matter. It's only designed to be a it's only designed to weaponize terms, to weaponize opinions. Like, because you're of this perspective, I can now dismiss you because now you represent something that the accepted language has weaponized against you. I can call you a white supremacist. I can call you a white nationalist. I can completely throw out your idea. Wait, I'm just talking about charter schools. I'm talking about something that would help black people in the black community. Nope. No, we're not having that conversation. You're espousing something that is clearly of white, so it has a white supremacist ethos. You're trying to teach me colonizer math. You're trying to do you're trying to you're trying to do so, dude, that's not a conversation that you can effectively build anything with. You gotta People gotta decide to come out of the well. And when they decide to come out of the well, you build a new well and say, okay, dip your bucket here, watch all the good shit that you come up with. This is
Right.
you got to decide to invest and to pour into this and make this the place to be as people get more and more disillusioned with the status quo, and it's inevitable. It's inevitable. This shit that has been created it's on some really thin stilts that is being held up as this, massive indestructible tower. This shit has no logic. It has no point. It was just for political expediency and riling people up with all of this ridiculous college talk. And it's not going to be able to sustain a thriving and effectual culture. And now that they've gotten what they wanted and their dude is in office, right? Um, and nothing happens, there's going to be a lot of people that are completely disillusioned with this shit.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Immediately too. It's not going to take long for them to figure out that it's not all it's cracked up to be. I would like to know why it's so easy for everybody to get caught in the boxes that they've built for themselves. Like, do people really just fundamentally agree with this shit? And to what degree is it that they agree with it versus they're just afraid to get ostracized by the group they feel like they belong to? Because that's the part that really worries you. Because I can understand a little bit more, I guess, if it's just about trying to stay safe in the in group versus there's got to be some of these
Sincere.
people who are talking. Yeah, at least that's
Yeah.
sincere. Some of these people who are talking about this shit really believe the shit that they're putting out, even though they're capitalizing on it in one way or another. Like Dr. Umar, for one, he says a lot of objectively false shit. He talks about how you can't have any love or concern for black people if you marry someone who's not black. And I to me, that's like, it's so stupid. It should be easy to debunk and just take it off the table. Talk about like the psychology shit that he talks about, what's happening in schools, and like there's a lot of data to prove all of that. But when I feel like the other part of it is just some sensational shit to say to get people riled up and to also get black women more on his team. I think that's an appeal to the feminine audience that he has, because it doesn't make any sense in the actual world. Just who you marrying one person says nothing about how you feel about an entire race of people or the plight of an entire group. That they just don't add up. But another thing I'll say is that ever since I took the mental, made the mental choice to remove myself from this stuff and remove my expectations of other people getting what I'm saying or understanding it or supporting it in any way, or like, things have been a lot better for me on almost every front. Because I think when you are dependent on people to co-sign whatever it is you're talking about, when they don't pay into it, whether it's attention or support or money or anything else, when they don't pay into it the way you expect them to or the way you think they should, it kind of starts to seep in to your opinion of the information by itself. So even if you started off completely believing in it, when you see other people ignore it for a while, instead of, you can only say for so long, well, they just don't get it. You start to be like, well, maybe it's not, maybe I should re-examine this. Maybe it's not as good as I thought it was, and blah blah blah. And I think that's destructive. I think completely removing yourself from it and building the thing that you think should exist is a way more powerful endeavor than trying to call everybody over to build it with you, because they may not see what, for who knows how many reasons, but they might not see the importance of it. If you are convinced of the importance of it, like if we're convinced
Yep.
that this is the
Absolutely.
way, vibrational tribalism and things like that, and intentional community, it's not really beneficial for the idea, the survival of the idea, to wait for other people to get on board. You got to build that shit yourself. And like I was saying, I said this before, you build it yourself. And then eventually, if people come to the same conclusion you came to, your work is to not say, I told you so. The personal work is to make sure you invite them in, you delegate some work, and you just keep moving forward. You don't say, what took you so long? I've been on this shit since before it was popular, like all of that. You got to figure out a way to integrate them into the thing that you built. If they're beneficial to it, integrate them into it and just keep moving forward. Because I have to say, man, like this, the adding the whole uh tax, not tax, the stock thing, and these other few things that we're doing, it kind of just, it gave more fuel to the whole movement, right? And working on these intellectual properties and shit like that, it gave more fuel to the idea than if I would have been constantly talking about it with people who weren't paying it no attention and posting about it
Right.
on Facebook trying to get support and shit like that. I feel like that's a way to let the air out of your idea.
Oh yeah, I've been there. You just be a weirdo and nobody will
Yeah.
like you.
And it could
Yeah.
be a great fucking idea. It could be great, but you show it off to so many people, and when they don't react to it the way you think they should react to it,
You start
then
thinking it ain't the shit.
right.
Right.
And that's totally self destructive when it comes to real world building.
Yeah, for
real
sure.
world building. I bet you there's a lot of shit that's been built in the world that is something that a lot of people depend on now. At one time or another, people told whoever that guy was
Yeah,
he's stupid for trying to
foolishness.
build it.
Yep.
Is this like the Noah's Ark story? Is that what I'm talking about right now? Is it, I'm pretty sure that's integrated in the Noah's Ark somewhere, where everybody was like, "Man, it ain't gonna rain. It ain't gonna rain." He's like, "All
That's
right, son,
fucking
I'm gonna
stupid.
just keep building this motherfucking ark."
I'm gonna get good at this boat thing. This
Yeah,
boat
I'm
thing I came
investing in
up
the
with.
boats, and and it worked out. If he would have listened to everybody else, he would have stopped. So I just see the benefit in removing yourself from that stuff and not being victim to other people's opinions all the time, especially not just everybody. You can't just open it up on social media and allow people who are not even qualified to give advice on that kind of shit. I
Right,
mean,
and people that are hell bent on being destructive and they're already operating from a place that there's no desire to find any solutions. What do you think presenting a solution looks like in that world? Like they
right,
don't have,
right,
and I think what needs to make us distinct and to be counterculture to the fuckery that's going on now is I'm always looking for opportunities to affirm some shit that I don't agree with. Like um Umar Johnson saying if you marry outside of your race, you have no affection for the black race. Okay. I can look at that and say, obviously, that's religious dogma. That's a proclamation that he made in service to his agenda. And of course, it's unprovable on both sides because you're talking about something that's abstract love, right?
right,
And
right.
if you've already determined that this person doesn't love you because they can't love you because they've betrayed the race, then there's nothing you could do. You could donate $1 million. You could help bring people out of poverty. You could help people's living conditions. You could do whatever completely in service and give of yourself. But you, but those are all things that said, you could look at if you make a religious proclamation like that, you just flip it and say, oh yeah, he's doing that to win favor over, to
Right,
deceive you.
right.
That's
Yeah.
where he's trying to come in from amongst us and just destroy us all and make us all get white wives and start eating unseasoned chicken. And I'm telling you, it's coming. Just
And you
mark my
can't say
words.
nothing. And you can't say nothing because for now, like I'm noticing now that the turnabout is another thing that's considered, that's like on the Republican white supremacy side of the game. So if somebody's saying, "Oh, you ain't doing enough to help black people," if you say, "So what are you doing?" That's not allowed anymore. You can't take somebody who's criticizing the lack of effort and then you say, "Okay, so what kind of effort are you putting in?" That's out of bounds for some strange reason. So you couldn't say to Umar, "What are you doing?" Because he'll be like, "Oh, it don't matter." Yeah, well, you said you was going to open a school. Well, none of that matters because you married a white woman. Well, you
Yeah,
got three stripper baby mamas. Well, none of that matters because they all black and you married a white. So he can dismiss you on some arbitrary factoid that
right.
he initially put into play in the first place, but you can't turn it around on him to question his efforts or anything like that. It don't make no sense. And it's just, again, why disengaging is so powerful, because ultimately what most of these people want is attention.
Right. And even and once it has to start getting into to personal shit, you know what I mean? Then it's like, okay, we're not even in the realm of ideas and what's effectual anymore. Like the moment we're talking about, well, who have you married and who have you impregnated, and how does that weigh on what these proposals could potentially do to ease human suffering? We've completely got off track. So I would just say, like, in affirming, when he talks about deindustrializing America and how that's fucked over black people specifically, he's absolutely right. He's
Right.
absolutely fucking right. Yeah, them shipping your jobs over to China, that's fucked over poor white people. It fucked over a lot of middle class black people and a lot of middle class white people too. That fucked over, yes. So him saying, yes, deindustrialization of America led to a disproportionate impoverishment of the black community. And right after that, the CIA made cocaine available for us to sell, and it had horrifically destructive effects. Absolutely right. So just because he says some ridiculous, unprovable shit,
Right.
because I can't prove that you love black people any more than he can prove that you don't love black people, but because he's made a religious proclamation that's in service to his agenda, it allows him to weaponize that concept to be able to dismiss objectively true information based upon the source that it comes from.
Right.
So I understand it as a rhetorical tool, and I don't even want to get caught in it because, like you said, we're delving into some shit that we've already concluded is just pointless. There's nowhere to go with that. So I don't even want to waste time on his asinine fuckery. I'd rather focus on here's the things that I agree with him on. Here's the
Right.
things that I
Yeah.
could say objectively. Okay, I'm not going to criticize dude because he didn't build the school. I'm not privy to that information. I don't know what happened with the money. I'm not in a position to accuse him of doing anything improper, right? There could be a lot to the story that I don't know. But the concept that places where black people are suffering the most, where there's the most violence in America, where there's a lack of parental guidance, right? Um, in those places, would it benefit black people if there was a curriculum that spoke specifically to their needs? Absolutely. And not only absolutely, but there's data that shows it. It's been done. And yes, there's been grifters that have taken advantage of it and falsified scores just so they could get big checks. Yes, there'll always be some fuckery. But do we throw away the opportunity for people to legitimately do good work and get positive results because a couple of pieces of shit are going to take advantage of it? Nah, absolutely not. So,
Right.
where we can agree with Umar, let's agree with him when he says some ridiculously, uh, indefensibly dumb shit. At this point, we're building our well. There's no place in our well for that. There's no honest discourse to be had about it. There's no point of even bringing it up, because
Yeah.
if you can't already see that that's a dumb idea based on the poison in the well that you're crafting these ideas in, there's nothing I can tell you. You're not ready to come out of your well. You want to have some identity politics, so it's a us versus them shit where it's biological tribalism rather than vibrational tribalism. I understand that that's where you're at, but there's no point in me. I mean, that's like me existing on a 4D plane and you're still in 2D. If
Yeah.
I'm in a fourth
Yeah.
dimensional space, I can try to explain it to you, but until you come into the third dimension and shed that tribalism shit and that binary thinking shit, and until you choose to come into vibrational tribalism, come into that fourth dimension, anything I explain to you is not going to make any sense.
Right.
So if that's the conclusion that you drew, if you don't bring it up, I have no reason to bring it up. So
Yeah.
let's talk about what we can do to get you funding for a school and how we're going to make that money accountable. And it'll be hard for you to continue to be racially tribal and hateful if you see that there's a whole bunch of people from other races who agree with what you're trying to do and who are willing to fund you.
Right.
It's going to
Yeah.
be hard for you to make a curriculum like fuck these translucent dog kissing crack ass devils. It'll be
Right.
hard for you to craft that curriculum if you're like, yeah, and they helped paid for the school because they cared about black people suffering and getting shot too. And they wanted to help you because
Right.
we're all human beings and we want to ease suffering. And when that's the aim above just racial tribalism, we could potentially generate a lot more money. You could get a lot more people on board who are willing to channel their time, energy, and resources if we're trying to cultivate some positive shit that transcends all the fuckery that I would say at least 60% of the population is completely sick of. That's what I would say.
I hope
I
so. At least 60%. I hope they're sick of it.
I
Because
think so. I
that's
think the
the
people
path to
that
healing this shit is people getting sick of it.
true.
Yeah. I
I,
think
I I don't
certain
think people
scrutiny.
know why they're sick of it yet. I think more people just know that they're sick of it, but I think the majority of those people that are sick of it don't fully comprehend why they're sick of it. They know what they ate was poisonous. They just don't know what the ingredient was that fucked them up.
Right.
They just know they're throwing up.
Right. Right. And that's good to a degree because at least, at the very least, hopefully you won't just keep shoveling that shit down your gullet.
One can only hope.
If it's making us all sick and we see what's happening. But that's the point is how much do we care about what's happening to everybody else? Because if it just makes the one person sick, I think the power comes from realizing that other people that you think you are not aligned with are also getting sick at the same time. And then we start to see these lines get blurred and start to see that we're not so separate. We're all connected in a way that they've been lying to us about for a long time, telling us that we're separate and we're all having these different experiences and there's two different this and this and that. But everybody's going through it. And if everybody's going through it, eventually we're going to have to look up and see that we're all suffering in similar ways. And just because of that should make you want to kind of reposition yourself and change your perspective of how you're thinking about this separation and how you're thinking about who you decided to align yourself with. And are they really deeply aligned with you? Or was this just some kind of fear-based relationship that grew this thing into something, some subsect of society and shit? Is it fear based? Is it hate based? Where is it coming from? And probably the truth is it's a mixture of everything throughout all of them.
And also, is the person that's leading you, how much better are they living than you? That's
Right.
always an important question to me. Like whether it's a prosperity preacher or a YouTuber or internet guru or whoever, right? Somebody wants you. Like just think about, okay, so if I have this opinion and I'm outraged about this shit and I'm subscribing to this belief system that I can't fuck with anybody outside my race. Okay, I'm on board. Uh, Once I sign up for this, what does my life look like, and are you living that much better than me? Because anybody that's getting rich off sharing some information for with you, I would be very weary of how sincere they are and how sincere that information is. Because once there's that, and that's not to say you can't lead people and help people and make money off it, not at all. But when the quality of those people's lives is improving so little, while the quality and standard of your life is improving so much, it's hard not to just say, maybe there's a financial incentive there. Maybe the financial incentive is more important than the sincerity of their work, the efficacy of their work, the objectivity of their truth. Maybe their bottom line is more important than all of that shit. And
Right.
I think a lot of people are latched on to ideologies, religions, and whatever, where they're not asking that question. Like, okay, so I stood up for all of this shit. Now what happened? Well, Nancy Pelosi made another $100 million. Thanks. Thanks for being outraged.
Mm.
Oh, well, we canceled your job. There'll be no Keystone Pipeline. So you're gonna have to find something else to do. Learn to code. Love you. Bye bye. And
Learn
that's
to
it.
code.
Or on the, okay, oh well, I followed you and I do everything that you say and I've been giving my money. Great. I drive a Cadillac. I got 2 private jets. I believe God is gonna provide me with a third private jet. I don't know what you're doing, but you're probably not praying hard enough. You're probably not loving and following God enough. Clearly I am, because I have a lot of money. Yeah, but you have all this money because we all come and we bring you all your money as God intended. Yes, yes. What's your point? I don't understand. I don't understand. Well,
And I don't like where this is going.
can you teach me how to get some of that money? Well, just love God more, you piece of shit. You're not loving God enough. You're probably jerking off to cuckold porn, and God don't want to bless you with all that cuckold porn in your browser history. It's your fault. Okay. All right. Sorry. So just look at the ideology, what's being asked of you, and if the person is getting rich beyond belief and your life isn't improving, I don't know. It's time to start asking questions. It's time to raise your hand.
Yeah.
Be like, I don't know. I don't know about this.
I also see where the content age that we live in right now is going to pay into that a little bit because honestly, I foresee something in that type of future for what we're doing right now because we're developing intellectual properties, and if this goes anywhere near the way I expect it to, we could be dealing with those same situations. But the difference is right now we have the opportunity to show the entire process, right? So if people follow from the beginning of this up until now, because it's all available, you can see the development, you can see how things change, you can see the principles that we applied and talked about. If a person just appears out of nowhere with $100 million in a private jet and he's trying to sell you a book on how to become rich, that's a little bit different than seeing people build something from the ground up and apply principles, because there's always going to be a group of people who can say, well, you know, I read this or I did that, but I didn't get the same results, because most likely they're not following exactly what it is that you lay out that got the results for you, if you're being truthful about saying what got the results for you. What we're talking about is mostly psychological and spiritual mechanisms to apply to change people's perspective and put them in a different frame of mind and how they approach whatever it is that they're building. So that's different than saying, you know, come to my seminar and I can fucking enroll you in a MLM. And
Right.
if you sell enough slim tea and shit, you'll get rich. So that's the bullshit. And I think holding it up in contrast, and we've been talking about this back and forth. I've been having conversations with it. Content creation. I think the people who are going to lay the strongest foundations for long-term success right now are people who are not afraid to show the whole process. So Hollywood and everything else has led us to believe for generations that you have to emerge as a masterpiece, and that's not
Mm.
necessarily true. They brought these superstars out to us after they had been developing them behind the scenes for who knows how long, teaching them dance steps. We didn't get to see these people in the studio for 6 hours a day practicing dance moves. We just see the final result of the dope dance routine on stage, and it looks unattainable. That's how you create celebrity. You know what I mean? That's how you create something that people are willing to pay $500 a ticket to go see, because it looks like magic.
Mm.
But the people who were going to show the results of them failing, like there's a channel that the boys watch sometime. Well, we all watch it. It's kind of dope. It's this dude who does like primitive building. So he'll go out in the woods and build a whole cabin barefooted and shit. He cuts down all the trees and fucking puts the mud on the walls. And he does it step by step and he builds dope shit. But one of them, he built a slingshot, like a, you know, like a sling, like the David and Goliath sling.
Yeah.
And he showed a montage of him trying to learn how to use it, and he showed these little quick clips of him throwing a sling at a target. He must have showed 300 clips of him missing the target.
Mm.
And I was like explaining to the boys how important that is, because most people don't even bother showing you that. They'll just build it and then showing you hit a bullseye, and then you're like, damn. And then you want to try it and you feel shitty because you missed 300 times, not knowing that he did too. So it's important to show the whole process. It's important to talk about sleeping on rappers' couches and shit,
Right.
especially when you are fully prepared and in the process of upgrading and evolving your situation to a place where nobody would ever guess that that was in your recent history. It's not like you relegated yourself to this is what I'm always going to be. You speak it from a whole different point of view of somebody who's getting better and changing their situation. So that's why that conversation needs to be had. That shit's important. And I think anybody who is paying into that, anybody who's taking the time to show their whole process and explain how they rebounded from their failures and how they repositioned themselves when they learn new information, those are the people who are seeding long-term success into their reality and not trying to fake it till you make it and act like you had it all figured out from the gate.
And that's a common theme too with people that do big things, is that there was 30 failures before the one success. You know, there's 10 failed businesses before that successful business.
Right.
And that's just a part of the process, you
Right.
know, and don't accept that as a part of your identity. I failed, so therefore I'm a failure. Like, no, that was my step towards the success. Like, this is just a part of the process. You're right. It is an important thing to see, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Because a lot of us know but a lot of us don't. You know what I mean? A lot of us assume that we're behind the curve or we're less capable and shit like that because we don't understand how much failure is part of the process. That's why I dig listening to Gary Vee so much. He talks about that shit a lot, about how you can make shit that don't work, and you just understand when you apply the context to your own experience, you start to understand like, okay, I can regroup, I can try something different. If it's something that you really intent on making it work, you can just figure out from within the failure how to reposition it and build on top of it without tearing the whole shit down and giving up. That's just going to be, because that's one of the main things that I want people to understand too, is that I don't want people to just look at me and see a change that I made and fucking pay me for the information that I put in the book.
Right.
The point of the book is to help, to just to show an example and help other people put themselves in that same picture too. If
Right.
not, it's fucking worthless, in my opinion. I mean, I know you can still get paid whether they, actually graft those principles onto themselves or not. They still bought the book, so you get paid. But I seriously want to see improvement. I mean, I just feel like that's the only alignment that anybody should be trying. And I don't want to make it seem like this the ultimate selflessness and altruism. I mean, it's in there for me, but I understand how impractical that sounds to the average person. So that's something that belongs to me. I wouldn't push that on other people, but I feel like that's something that we could all benefit from having some type of semblance of in our own experiences. Like I don't necessarily.
But there is something in it for the individual. Like you would much rather, if you're honest with yourself, everybody would much rather live in a world full of successful, fulfilled, happy people. That's
Mm,
a better world to live in.
yeah, some
Living in
people
a
would. I don't know about everybody.
well, I think, but that's a whole nother conversation. But as far as like the goodness of the experience, people smiling, holding doors, not trying to fuck you over, people that have dealt with their trauma and their dysfunction, and they're not desperate, like that's a better situation. When you're living in a situation where everybody's mind is on scarcity, everybody feels like they got to stab somebody in the back to get what they need, nobody's looking out for them, they're not happy with themselves, they're not happy with their situation, and they don't have the tools or the vision to change it. They don't even know where to start. Like, okay, you're saying, you're talking all this shit, I don't even know where to start to like get the money I need to feed myself or to change my situation at all. When people are in that space, and a whole bunch of them, that's of course a volatile situation and a recipe for disaster. The likelihood that you're going to have volatile, violent interactions when that's the mindset of the majority of people, go up tremendously, versus being in a world where people don't feel like um, success is impossible, or fulfillment is impossible, or happiness is impossible. You know what I mean? And people feel confident enough that even if they're failing on their way to getting it, they're confident that they're going to get there. People in that mind, they're more enjoyable to be around. They're more enjoyable to interact with and have conversations with. And also, like you said, just switching that perspective, you don't realize how much more opportunity you're making available to yourself. And when people get in that mind state and they accept it as a part of their identity, to operate in a way that just makes them unattractive to opportunity. It's not even that you don't have the skills or you couldn't do it given the opportunity. It's like you're living in a headspace and it's manifesting in your demeanor and your interactions with people that is cutting you off from potential things. Like just having that shift first and foremost, everything else can potentially be learned and integrated into your program. But if you're stuck in a space where you're unhappy with yourself, like anything else is out of the question.
Yeah.
There's no situation you're going to be able to talk your way in or maneuver in that's going to make you happy, or that you're going to find success or fulfillment in. And I want to live in a world where the majority of the people are successful, are happy, are fulfilled, are free of their trauma and their dysfunction. That's just is a better world to me. So as far as like the high level altruism and everybody wouldn't be in on it or really into it as much as you. I think if people think about it long enough, I think they would. I think that vision of the world is a more appealing world for most people that hunger for that sort of thing. I
I
guess
think
if you're
so.
just a fucking asshole that's addicted to the pain and the assholery and the fuckery, yeah, again, I we just need to leave those people in that. If you want to
Yeah.
wallow in that well, we're like you said, I'm not going to cut your leg off to save you. I'll
Right.
let you
Right.
be in that well.
And also, I wasn't like when I was saying that, I wasn't even considering the people like who are that far gone. I was thinking about the people in the middle who just have they have these emotional relationships to things and a certain tier of accessibility to things. So there's a lot of people who would definitely lose their fervor for expensive shit if everybody could afford it. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
those people, and that doesn't take you being malaligned or evil. That just you just have a misplaced relationship with the thing. You know what I'm saying? Because a Lamborghini is still a Lamborghini, whether there was 3,000 of them made or 100,000. It's still the same car. It's got the same engine. It's got the same potential to go the same speed. There's literally nothing fundamentally changed about it, except that more people have access to it now. And if that changes your relationship with it, then I would have to say that the relationship was misplaced from the outset.
And
You know what
maybe
I
that's
mean?
the equilibrium, the natural equilibrium that the world needs. There's too many people chasing shit that they don't even know why they want it. And that creates a demand for people to make shit even if it comes at the expense of human suffering or wars or
Right.
whatever.
Yep.
We got to make this shit. We got to make this shit. So a world where people aren't chasing things that they haven't already purposed within themselves they actually want, I think that recalibrates supply and demand in a healthy way.
Yeah, I think so. It's going to hurt a lot of things. A lot of things are going to have to get
For
moved
sure.
around, recalibrated. And then we're going to hear like the same chatter, not to call it chatter, like it's important talk, but the same conversation we heard from people who lost their jobs when they closed the car factories. That's
Right.
going to be the same talk we hear from people that say, well, nobody wants Gucci belts anymore. What are we supposed to
Right.
do? And it's gonna be like, yo, shut up. We don't even care. You're multimillionaires. We don't really care. Find something else to do with your fucking time than selling people $10,000 belts. You know what I mean?
And
It's like,
but isn't even that when you talk about making decisions that ease suffering when that's the main goal, doesn't that make way more sense to change to have that shift in such a way where instead of it wiping out um hundreds of thousands or millions of middle class people who are struggling to get wealth, right? And living check to check. Doesn't it make more sense that instead of like wiping out their livelihood, that you fuck up people? I don't want to say fuck up because I don't mean it in a malicious way, but I would rather put that struggle of finding something else to do on somebody that has the means to
right,
weather
right,
that storm in a lot easier way. So
right,
if I crush this industry and 100,000 working class families lose out because we want to employ slaves somewhere else, I'd rather keep those people working, free the slaves that you're pimping, and put you out of a job, and then you could take your hundreds of millions of dollars and just find a new industry to get into.
right.
That to me is a better
Yeah.
a cost benefit analysis of if somebody's got to get the short end of the stick, who what would we rather uproot?
Right. Because you're talking about, on one hand, people who could possibly be destroyed for generations because you closed the factory versus a person who probably knows so much about the inner workings of business and money generation that they could just to be realistic, the people who operate in those spaces, they could put money into certain industries that they could live off of for the next 30 years without even actually finding a new job. They can just make the right investments that'll pay for their lifestyle
Right.
for
They
the
don't
next
even
few
have to be
years.
actively doing
Right.
anything.
You don't even have to do nothing. You just know enough to where to put the money and how to make it work for you. So yeah, I definitely would choose putting them out of the job versus somebody. Yeah, 100%. That's an easy choice. That's not even a hard one. But yeah, it's gonna happen though. That's what's gonna have to happen. Is people have to change their relationship to possessions. It's not that you can't want dope shit. It's just that you have to put that in perspective. What does that really mean? What cost is it coming at? Literal and figurative. If this dope thing that you want costs the same as 6 months of somebody's rent, it's like, I mean, this is what it takes. This is the amount that it takes for somebody to just exist in the world for a year, and I'm gonna spend it on a pair of shoes. Does that really add up to living on a planet where humanity needs work, where we need fixing, shit needs doing? Is it really even, I mean, how is it even useful to have shit that exists? Is our money set up wrong? Is our living situation set up wrong? Should rent be cheap, more expensive, or should the shoes be cheaper? Like the fact that both of those things can exist in the same world, sometimes it's confusing. And a lot of the places where you have access to those things, it's only blocks away from people in the real world suffering, hungry, mental illness, fucking out in the street, and the government would rather spend tens of thousands of dollars building spikes under a bridge so people can't sleep there than trying to actually fix the problem.
I think the same thing that would cause a person to draw the moral line, right? That out of my own from within myself, I'm crafting that boundary of, yeah, I want this thing, but I have limits to the situation in which I'm willing to get it. So here's certain things I'm not willing to do in order to get it, and here's certain conditions in which, if the product was produced that way, I would no longer desire the product. That same thing that would give you that moral governance is the same thing that would free you from the tribalism. It's the exact same
Yeah,
thing.
it is.
Is you deciding within yourself what your value system is and what's important to you before you lend your energy and your efforts and your morality to any kind of tribe who's making that decision for you already. Because whether it's a political tribe or a racial tribe, they've already decided the value of a lot of these things for you, and you're just kind of going along with whatever's crafted, and that's the trap. But if you decide, because the society will tell you, oh yeah, it's moral, it's good, it doesn't matter. You like the computer, right? You like the sneakers, right? So who cares? Doesn't matter, right? Who
Yeah.
cares? Yeah, but if it, so, the system may tell you that, but if you've already decided within yourself that that's beyond the pale for you, then that's going to inform your decision making of how much you want something, or what your moral limits are on how it's procured. But it's tough because like you've been saying this whole throughout this whole experiment we've undertaken, it is self work. It's self work.
Yeah, that's all of it. The whole thing. The whole fucking thing. It's so easy to point and try to draw attention to these things that are influencing you to be the way you are, because that's, I mean, there's some realness to that. There's a lot of things that fucking trigger us, and I don't know, I know how that word itself is triggering, but there's a lot of things that trigger us and bother us and put us in a certain mood and put us in a place where we don't want to be exercising these higher frequency ideologies and shit. We just want to be jerks because somebody was a jerk to us. It's super easy, but the work is to transcend that shit. And I think pointing out that this is something that it's not a unitask ideology. You know what I mean? It's something that the same philosophy from where it is without too much stretching and pulling can apply itself to so many aspects of life, and with the ideal of improvement, right? It's kind of reminding me of, not to compare it to such a masterwork, but it's kind of reminding me of how the art of war has survived for so long, because it's not just about actual war. You can take those words that were written there, and it don't take no effort at all to apply it to relationships in an office building, or anything, any type of relationships or human interaction that you have to navigate. The art of war can help you. It's probably not always the best thing that you can consult or how to fix something, necessarily, but it's really, really easy to superimpose it onto a lot of other situations and get sound with advice from it. And that's what I like about it. So I think this thing, it's going to end up having the same effect, just because that's the nature of getting down to the root of how to solve these problems. Admitting that it's all self work for first and foremost, and guiding it towards a place where it's going to make things objectively better for everybody. It puts the self where it belongs, but it takes the responsibility to self away from the places where it shouldn't be. Because there's some places we don't even have to consider what we want out of it if it's just the dopest thing for everybody involved. We don't even really have to deeply consider what we're going to get out of it because there's so many benefits already. Somebody said uh, to, a thought experiment is to design a world and you don't know who you're going to be in that world. So
Right.
don't try to build it for yourself. Just build it, and without knowing what station you're going to occupy or what family you're going to be born into or what color you're going to be or what gender you're going to be. That's world building. You know what I mean? Because you want this shit to be, you want everybody to have access to the same energy, at least. What they do with the opportunity is like, who knows? Who knows? And even that, the whole outcome, equality of outcome versus equality of opportunity, even that is not considering the whole generational pressure that all of us have on us. This shit doesn't happen in a vacuum. There's always going to be people who don't give a shit, and you can give them the best plan, you can set them up, you can make phone calls for them, and all of that, and they're going to squander it because that's just who they are, and that's fine. But for the most part, I think people want to be responsible for their own growth and development and success. I think it takes a very traumatized person to wait around for or would rather somebody hand them something without them having earned it. That's a person who's probably, lost a lot of shit, has abandonment issues, has things taken from them. They don't see any reason to plan on tomorrow because everything could blow up at any moment. That's the person I feel like would
Yeah.
rather you just hand them a check for $1 million. Most other people want you to just either open a lane for them or at the very least, don't trip me while I'm climbing.
Right.
At the very least, don't trip me while I'm climbing. And I think that's what most of us want to see. And that's available for us now more than it's ever been in the history of humanity. So this is the time to bet on that shit. If there was ever a time to bet on it, it's now. So fuck it. I just want to see it. I want to see it. I want to experience it. That's one of the biggest points of the compound. I want to see how people function when there's without the pressure of the cost of existence. You know what I mean? I want to know what it's like to have an amount of revenue either coming in or sitting and working or have an amount of revenue secured to where you don't have any direct pressure on your existence. So you can wake up and just figure out what is it that makes you as a human genuinely happy and genuinely excited about life. Because how many of us really know what that is, the way shit is set up right now? You know what I mean? Like you got to hustle to get the electric bill paid and the mortgage and everything else. There's very little room for you to just enjoy the breeze and figure out what it is that really makes you tick. It might not be plumbing. You might make a good living emptying septic tanks and shit, but if everything was taken care of, is that what you would still do with your time? I'd like to explore that and see what people would really do with their time if there wasn't any other pressure. And I know that's like that's the conversation that's kind of being had around universal basic income, is that if you can remove these couple things, then people would be able to get a picture that they haven't really been able to develop for themselves under our current system. Shit is fucking rough out here. So you can't blame people who don't have time to think like that. Not many of us do, to be honest. I mean, you gotta have um, a pretty nice stream of income or multiple streams of income to even entertain those types of thoughts. Most people are just in the hustle. You know what I mean? You wake up, you get it done, you come home, and you're lucky if you get to watch 2 episodes of escapism on Netflix before you go to bed.
Right.
You
On
know what I mean?
autopilot.
Right. Yeah. You just can't. And it's like, and that's valid because this is literally the world that we built. The whole fucking 40-hour work week shit was based on fuckery. That wasn't based on optimum productivity and all of that. Productivity has multiplied exponentially since the 60s. But I tell you what hasn't multiplied is the compensation for that, the compensation for that productivity. Why? I have no idea. You know what I mean? I can't say honestly. I don't know why people are the CEOs and shit are making triple, quadruple more money than they've ever made. So why that's not trickling down to everybody else and it still be room for people to understand that this is the best thing to do? I don't know. It boggles the mind a little bit, man. I know it's greed. I know it's a little bit of fear and callousness and not really giving a shit. Because if you can get somebody to work for $8 an hour, why would you pay them 12? And
Mhm.
most people are not confident enough to demand the 12 because there's somebody right behind you who'll take the 8. And then you're fucked. You know what I mean? So it's a really weird system we built for ourselves. And the only way I know out of it is to integrate enough to make the proper extractions and then build an alternative. I don't know any other way to do it from inside the system. I don't know if you can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the way.
Yeah.
And it's we talk about it like it's a small thing, but it's not. It's really, I think I used this analogy before. It's like the stone of Sisyphus, like just the
Yeah.
meaninglessness
Right.
of so the day-to-day activities that's going on, but we're going in a particular direction, and it's a direction that doesn't give a fuck really about those quality of life issues that you outlined, about people being fulfilled and having a purpose, right? um and you're basically trying to stand in front of this giant stone that's been going in this direction since the beginning of recorded history, and standing in front of it without being crushed by it, and then have enough people that start slowly rolling it in the other direction,
Right.
so I mean it's a huge shift from how we do things now. But yeah, it's one part human will, and then the other part is the resources. We have the freedom to cultivate and create whatever we want. We're fortunate enough to be in that circumstance, so there's nothing really impeding people from cultivating this sort of situation. But yeah, you need the resources to do it. I mean, I don't know what the suicide rate is amongst like the Amish or the Mennonites, but that being kind of detached from the larger culture. I mean, I don't think they give a fuck who the president is. I don't think they're on Twitter, applauding the death of children and cracking jokes. I just don't think that they're into that sort of shit, and I think they're okay. I think
Yeah.
they're okay helping each other build their own houses, and harvesting the crop, and growing big ass beards. I think they're perfectly okay, and they get on the train every now and then, you know.
Yeah. It
But they're
seems like
living
they're getting something out of it. It seems like we could learn as a species. It seems like we could learn something from what they're doing instead of just calling them weird. Because like you
right,
said, a lot of the shit that's plaguing us, and it's plaguing us in a place where we're supposed to have the most access to the most opulence, the most media. You got 347 channels, you got 15 pay services, you got all of this shit that's supposed to be keeping people happy and keeping them, satiated, but they're still destroying each other and themselves. But you got people who have made a conscious decision to disconnect themselves from all of that, and they from the outside looking. I mean, aside from a little bit of spousal abuse and misogyny and possible, patriarchal shit, aside from some of that shit, they seem to be doing okay. I, dude, I mean, are they? Well, then again, they wouldn't be calling the cops too much, probably either. So I'm sure
no,
some shit goes down.
there's no way to prove it.
yeah,
There's no way
yeah,
to prove it.
yeah. If it is going bad over there, nobody would really know. And I guess that's good too, because I mean, not that you want people to suffer in silence, but there's also if it's something going wrong in there and it's not obvious from the outside, maybe it's better to not broadcast it to 300,000 people on Twitter and have them all form their own opinions about what's going on in the Mennonite community, and
Right.
maybe that's good too. You know what I mean? Imagine how many arbitrary arguments and disagreements you've had with your girl. Like if you told all your friends about every one of them, they'd hate her, even though
Oh,
you've
of
forgiven
course.
her. You've forgiven her. Y'all have completely gotten over it, and you realize it was a stupid argument. But your friends will be like, "Yo, how are you still with her?"
What a fucking cunt.
Yeah,
Scum cunt.
yeah, it
Miserable
doesn't make any
scum cunt.
sense. But
Yeah.
those opinions from outside could then start to influence what you guys have. So yeah, there's something positive to be said about keeping that shit to yourself. It's the ground cover concept in permaculture.
Mm.
That's the first thing you do when you're starting this new endeavor. You want to start building the soil. You don't think about nutrients. You don't think about tilling. You don't think about where the apple tree is gonna go. You dump 6 inches of mulch on the whole shit. Just cover the whole thing. Just let it have a chance to rest, grow microorganisms, grow fungus that it needs, kill all the grass that was there and all the weed seeds that were like. Just cover the whole shit. Just cover it all up. And at the early parts of a permaculture project, that's the most powerful thing you can do. It's going to improve your soil. It's going to improve your long-term success chances because you just gave the whole network a chance to just cool off and regenerate rather than just sticking a tree in the ground and asking even more of this land that's been, giving up all
Already
this
abused.
energy and not
Right.
getting nothing put back into it. The best thing you can do is just cover the whole shit.
Give me more. And that's where we're at with humanity.
Right.
Humanity is a weathered, beaten, abused, and traumatized um, worker who has barely any time to sleep. And industry is like, yo, we need you back. It's the bell whistle. Let's go.
Right.
And there's no like, well, wait a minute. Like, we need to be nourished. And not only that, like, what are we even building? I'm getting up for
Yeah.
work every day. I'm exhausted. I'm unfulfilled. And I don't even know what's getting built at the end of this conveyor belt. Like I don't even see what my effort in this little context, what the whole is, what the greater effort or aim is at the end of it. And so yeah, man, that's brilliant. That's absolutely we traded meaning for all of these like trinkets and distractions.
Right.
And I think the social illness that's emerged is evidence that yeah we've been way too content because we have access to these gadgets and these distractions that somehow makes up for the lack of like real connectivity and meaning.
Yeah.
And so, and that doesn't mean that the objects are bad. It just means our attitude about them and what we're willing to give up in exchange for them, that needs to be recalibrated. And that's not something we can rely on the government to do. Any power you give them to make decisions, they're not going to make those decisions with your best interest in mind. The only way that we get to that point is people deciding to tune a lot of this shit out. It doesn't matter who the president is. Doesn't matter who doesn't. It's gonna be some self-serving, psychopathic, sociopathic, greedy motherfucker that's gonna take that power that you give them to look out for themselves. So there's no point in getting outraged and getting attached to that. The only path forward is permaculture, not just in being able to feed yourself, but being a part of and cultivating a culture that has some sort of eternal meaning, some sort of permanence. It's not just this throwaway plastic shit.
Right.
There's a set of values and goals that stretch beyond just like your temporal needs and your day-to-day necessities. There's got
Right.
to be something more important than that you're working towards.
Right. And that permaculture principle can superimpose itself onto everything because everything would benefit from having that idea at the outset. There's no business, well, or not maybe not everything. I'll rephrase that. I'll say anything that's really worth existing. If you factor that in at the outset, a long-term integration with this thing and everything around it to make sure that you put just as much in as you take out, the rest cycle, all if you apply all of that at the beginning, I can't think of too many businesses that wouldn't flourish even more than they are now. That doesn't mean you're going to start taking losses. That means you have a better chance at being around for a longer time and helping more people in the process.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just an objectively better way to build all this shit. If you own a car company, you should be thinking about this. You shouldn't be thinking about fuck it. Well, whatever happens, happens. If you factor this in, even culturally, it seems like it would give you a place in people's consciousness where you wouldn't be seen as some, throwaway, disposable company, big corporation. We don't really care about them. We just want their shit. You could just have a different connection with people. But I'm sure there's a couple millionaires out there right now that think this is crazy talk, and you just got to pay attention to the numbers. And that probably was true for a time. I just feel like we're in a different paradigm right now. I think
Yeah.
it's called the world, the atmosphere, existence is calling for change right now. It's not just people, it's the way you exist in society. And I say evolution or extinction because I remember thinking about how this isn't the old paradigm tells you that you got to argue this shit out to the ground and debate and fight about it and have a war to see who's right. That's their old way. I think the new paradigm is one of just saying, what would you do if over the next 6 months oxygen was going to evolve into some other gas? Is there a debate? Is that we're going to fight about it? You just either going to learn to breathe this new shit or you're not going to be here. It's period. It's evolution or extinction. There's no room for conflict and combat in that. It just is what it is. And I'm more focused on evolving than becoming extinct. I really feel like the shit that we're focusing on and paying into is something that most people around the planet who have any uh, idea or any inkling, any motion in their being to improve and evolve is probably thinking the exact same thing. That's what it's the zeitgeist for real. It's just the spirit of the age. It's what it is. That's why it doesn't need to be, we don't have to compete with the algorithm for this. What we're talking about is the algorithm. We don't have to compete with YouTube and shit. Like we'll put these videos up, and if they ever try to take them down, what I don't give a shit because I'm not dependent on them because I understand that they're gonna have to go along with this shift too eventually. So I'd rather keep pushing myself forward in the wave rather than warning people about how they're going to fall behind or anything like that. I'm just trying to stay at the head of the wave. And I see where it's going. So I'm all in for that. I'm all in as far as that's just concerned. And as far as, I can tell just looking at the past year or so, I feel like I made the right decision. I feel like I made the right decision. Everything's going in the direction that I want it to be going. Things are closer to where I want them to be than they were last year. And the only thing that changes is your personal perspective and the work that you start. Like, of course, you do a little bit more, but the reason you're able to do a little bit more is because you're convinced that the work matters. It's not just a metric that necessarily I may not be able to lay out on paper and show somebody what these improvements are and what I attribute them to, but I understand it from within the experience. And that's good enough for me. My stocks is doing pretty damn good. So, you know what I mean? And that sounds like a crazy statement to myself from 4 years ago.
Right.
But shit is real. I'm up 538% in Castor Maritime, in case anybody was wondering.
Bam.
This shit is amazing. It's absolutely
And
unbelievable.
what was that like in a couple months?
1 month.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, in a month.
There's never been a time in any other endeavor that I could think of, and I'm sure you could say the same thing, where you increase your wealth by 500% in a month.
Right. With I won't say zero. I'll be honest. I'll say a minuscule amount of physical effort because the motion of my thumbs on the phone does count. The Googling and YouTubing that I do to look up which stocks are going to perform well, that counts as labor. So I won't say zero effort. There was some effort, but still 530% with Google, YouTube, and thumbs. You can't be mad at that. You can't be mad at that. And anybody who ain't playing that game right now, you playing yourself. You playing yourself. They laid us out this situation. They told us it wasn't for us. They told us we couldn't navigate it, and they've been proven wrong. So it's time to get in the game and play. Make these extractions. Make these extractions. Transfer this wealth from them to you and build the alternative.
Build the alternative.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. The The title of this episode could be "Stop Calling Stocks and Yoga White People Shit."
Yeah, stocks and yoga is not white people shit. It's just yo, try it out and see what you do. You'll be up a few 100%, and you'll be limber and peaceful and shit. You won't be mad at the red light.
You'll be relaxed. You'll be so relaxed and so focused that you won't stress out, and you'll know to buy the dip. You won't
Right,
panic. You'll be like, you
right.
know what? It's going down. I'm gonna buy the dip. It'll
Yeah,
be right
just
back up.
that, bro. That's a world changing principle right there. Just that by itself, without considering everything else, just by the dip. Do you know how that is spitting in the face of everything this system has showed you on the outside? You know what I mean? It tells you how you're supposed to panic and you're supposed to stay up all night hustling and work your fingers to the bone and everything. They taught us all of that. But when you say buy the dip, you laugh in the face of all their chaos. And that's such a dope principle, bro. When it looks like it's going down and they want you to panic, I'm just gonna buy more. How do you feel about that? How you feel
I'm
about that?
gonna double down.
Right? Because that's what they've been doing behind the scenes. They won't tell you that part. That's what they've been using. You know what I'm saying? They've been using all the magic that they told us to be afraid of. They're using Fibonacci sequence to figure out where stocks are gonna go. Bro, when I saw that, that was one of the tethers, one of those tethers that we have that's connected to keeping us conservative and worried and a little bit scared about taking risk. When I saw that they used Fibonacci, one of those tethers got cut. I was like, wait, what?
It's liberating.
Y'all using some metaphysical mathematics over here to oh okay, I see what's going on. I see what's happening. Y'all just fucked up. You let me see you using Fibonacci to figure out the stock market. You just totally screwed up. Totally screwed up. That's some powerful shit if you really take into account what Fibonacci is versus what the stock market claims to be. You know what I'm saying? Because Fibonacci mathematics is very harmonious, and the stock market presents itself as chaos.
Right.
So how do you measure chaos using a harmonious system? Somebody lying, and it ain't Fibonacci.
And without exception, whenever there's suffering and a loss of wealth, it's not a loss, it's a transfer.
Right.
Every one of these giant dips, like they say, when everybody sold off in '06, if you just would have held, you would have made
Mm,
all your money back plus double. You'd have
right.
been fine. You'd have been
Right.
fine. Now there's a couple companies that probably, if you were invested in them directly, some companies probably went out of business for sure. But if you just invested in an index fund or something, yeah,
Right.
it would have all came back eventually.
Right.
But you never had the chance to make it back because you sold it for the cheapest it was. And who do you think bought it when it was dirt cheap?
Right. The same people
Right.
who were sitting in the big chair the whole time because they knew.
Yeah. So
Yep.
I know a correction's coming. I ain't selling shit that I know is gonna be good long term. My 5G shit and my AI shit and electric car shit. Nope. I know it'll be fine. I'm not falling for it. I'm gonna hold it forever. Pay me I need a couple of million by Thursday, and I need it crisp. I need unmarked bills. I need it all. But if you just it dipped a little bit, like I had that AYRO, and I know I'm like, it's gonna get back there. It's nope, I'm not selling. It dipped, it got back like in the sixes. I just bought a whole bunch more. That shit got like to $11 today. I'm like, there we
Wow.
go. I was waiting on you, bitch. You sorry, slow bitch. But you got where I
Yeah.
needed you to be. Thank you.
Yep. I'm learning that
And
same lesson too. I had something in here. I think it was KRMD, something like that. It was a medical thing, and it was sitting for so long. It was down low. It wasn't doing what I wanted it to do, and it was because of the little deal I made with myself, not to just keep dumping money into it. I wanted to just keep what I had and grow it just for the experience. I wanted to free up the money that I had in there. So I waited for it to get a little bit above what I was holding it at, hoping it would do more. And so I saw it jump one day, and I was like, fine, this is a perfect time to get rid of it. I won't feel bad because I didn't actually lose. I just got rid of it sooner than I wanted to. Dude, I look back at it now, and it's double, almost triple what it was when I got rid of it.
Oh, you want to know some real heartbreaking shit? So, I already told you about Novavax, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 200 shares. It's up to like 350 now. We're talking about $1,400 that should have been 70 grand. A brother of mine had 1,000 shares of some shit. I think it was called Sundial or Sunworks or some shit. I don't
Sundial,
remember
the
the name
the
of it.
the ganja company.
I gotta look. Is SNDL? I don't know
Yeah,
what the ticker is.
SNDL.
It's like
We
350
spoke.
bucks.
Oh no, that's no SNDL Sundial. The growers
Let
is
me look it up.
295 right now.
Hold up. Let me look. Let me look. Okay. SNDL.
Yeah,
Hold on.
yeah,
He
that's Sundial growers. I
he
sent you
just he
that.
just sent me a text saying it got up to 350. Let me see here. Did he send me the right one? Okay. Nah,
Yeah,
he
it
must have
did.
sent.
It
Yeah.
did hit three. It hit 363. It's back down to 295, but that's $3.63.
Oh, this motherfucker. Okay. Nope.
But
I'm still the biggest loser.
I
Yeah.
sent you Sundial when it was 50 cents.
Okay. So
It
he
was
said,
50 cents. And
yeah.
I was like, what you think of it? This was before I was making decisions. I wasn't
Right.
pulling the trigger yet. I just had a long ass watch list. And I was like, yo, what you think about Sundial? And you were like, well, I think the cannabis companies have had their run already. It's more geared towards, the bio meds and shit like that. And I thought it just sounded like, yeah, I was like, yeah, they kind of have popped off. Like it's kind of mainstream now. It's no more of that big rumor. Oh my God, cannabis.
Yeah.
I think we're over that. So I agreed, but it was at 50 cents and it's at $3 right now. And that was like a month ago. It's ridiculous. It's crazy how this shit moves. Most of the things that you would invest, a lot of this shit gains. A whole lot of it gains. There's big losses, of course. People lose their ass in this shit all the time. But I don't know if I'm not going to assume that I just have a magic touch. But everything that I showed interest in, added to the watch list, been keeping an eye on, it's all magnitudes higher than it was when I first added it to the watch list. So what does that tell you?
And dude, see, I thought he was trying to make me feel good about my Novavax shit because I didn't even look up what the ticker was. When he said 350, I thought he meant like my Novavax got to 350. I'm thinking he meant $350. So
Oh,
I'm like, and he's like, I had 1,000 shares, but I sold it all. I was like, I felt better because he missed out on $350,000. But no, that's not what happened. He
uh,
missed out on maybe 3 grand total.
but
So
that's awesome if
I'm
for a
still the
thousand
biggest loser.
shares, depending on where he got in at. But I remember specifically looking at this shit at like 50 cents and watching
Yeah.
it dabble 60, 75, and then I saw it. I saw it all happen. So the whole point is that I'm definitely trusting my trigger finger a lot more right now. I'm trusting the long term a lot more because I'm watching it. Hearing about it is one thing, but actually paying attention to it and seeing it happen
Yeah.
is something totally different. And it's just growing a lot of confidence in me to just be like, fuck it, and just really, really do this shit, dude. And yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, and fuck what I think or what I say. Obviously, I didn't know what the fuck I was talking about. And I know I had wasted a lot of money when I first started on penny pot stocks, and some of them did really good because they are super volatile. So
Right,
if there's a catalyst that'll push it up, it'll push it up, 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 up. But it was also ones where it just went down exponentially and never really recovered.
right,
I'm talking about getting in at like $3 or $4, and that bitch has been under a dollar for over a year. You know
right,
what I'm saying? And so, yeah, if you have the patience to hold on to it long enough, um, eventually, if it doesn't go out of business, eventually you could probably get your money back. It's just trying to be smart too with where you want to tie your capital up.
right,
If you got
right.
unlimited money to throw at it, you could take more chances. But if you only got, you got to pick your shots. I try to make good decisions. I did really good this year so far. I've been picking winners, but yeah, man. Fuck do I know, man. You should have
Oh,
bought.
any, yeah, I
Should have
definitely
bought.
should have.
I feel like how many shares were you gonna buy? I feel like I owe you. I feel like
No,
I
I would
failed.
have had to buy. You know, you got to buy 100 automatically. So that's where I would
Oh
have
yeah,
been like,
yeah,
I'll take
yeah, yeah.
100 shares real quick. But yeah, that's what I did with Castor. Was I did 125 just to start. I was like, I don't know. So that was my first one that I actually pulled the full trigger on. But I'm like I said, this shit is amazingly up right now, and I'm super happy. It's helping me reach these goals that I set. And I was like, yeah, when I triple my initial investment, I'm gonna take out the initial investment and then use the rest that's in there. And now I'm like, I ain't taking out shit. I'm keeping all the money in the game, bro. I gotta keep the money in the game. It's like catching a fish. You just put the hook back in them and throw them out in the water to catch a bigger fish. You don't take the small fish home and fry it. You just turn them right around.
Yeah, I haven't pulled out any of my capital anymore either. I had a couple emergencies a few years ago, but when you see it in there making more money, you're like, yeah, see, because if I'd have took it out, I could have only bought 250 shares because I kept the other money in there. I got 700 shares now.
Right.
So I'm gonna get way. So when you see, the more you put in, the more you get back. It's hard to extract anything out of it. You're like,
Yeah.
so I wrote down some. It was actually some stretch goals that I made for my three accounts, and I wrote them last week to get to by this week, and I ended up stretching them more because by the end of last week I'd already hit them. I'm like,
Nice.
see, I didn't even think I was gonna get there, but yeah, man,
That's
and
awesome.
and we're overdue for a correction. That's what everybody's saying, but I really feel like they engineer these crashes, and it's the spook regular people who they feel like their whole wealth and identity is tied to this shit. Like, oh no, 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 and they can't be as frivolous with the money because they're not millionaires, and they panic and they sell. And I feel like every time we do that, we just make rich people even richer because we give it to them at bargain basis prices.
Yep.
So like this time, I'm not doing it, man. When I panicked with the dip back in February, and I look back at how much money I lost, I'm like, you fucking idiot. And I looked at all the shit that I was like, oh shit, this is probably the big one. Elizabeth, I'm coming to join you. This shit is over. It's all about we're about to go to Mad Max. Fuck it. I got it. No, no. If it's all going to Mad Max, it don't matter anyway. What the fuck you need the money for?
Right. Right. Exactly.
Everything I would have held on to, it all recovered.
Yep.
It all recovered, and then it went up even to new highs after that,
Mm.
beyond what it had ever gotten to prior to that. And I monitored every single one. Not one thing I was holding ended up worse off than it was before the crash happened. And I'm like, oh. And then I found out about that dude. I think his name's Paul Singer, some hedge fund manager fuckface who got on TV and was like, yeah, it's all about to go down. We all better sell. And you find out that this dude, like, I guess he bought a whole bunch of puts or did shorts or whatever, but he made, I think it was $2 billion
Good Lord.
within that month because of all the things that dipped. And it's like, how the fuck can you manage so much money and wield so much influence? You could get on TV and get people to do some shit and you directly profit from it. But that ain't market manipulation. But that dude, Roaring Kitty or whatever, the motherfucker that did the GameStop shit, right? He's been subpoenaed in Massachusetts and he's got to go to court. The SEC wants to talk to him. You know what I'm saying? How they apply the law. You ain't say shit to Paul Singer, and these dudes get on TV all the time. And that's even what they were talking about in some of their chats. About market manipulation. It's perfectly legal for these dudes to get on TV, and they run hedge funds and they tell people this is going to happen or that's going to happen, and people listen to them. And they're absolutely engineering and influencing what people do. But they do that on that scale, and then the institutions protect them, and the SEC and the authorities don't go after them. But if you do it from a grassroots level, and the little guy comes up, then all of a sudden they're trying to enforce everything and trying to make it seem like a big deal. All this selective enforcement bullshit. It's the fuckery, man.
Yeah,
It's the
he's paying
absolute
for
fuckery.
publicizing the exploit. That's what he's paying for. If he had just quietly done that shit and pocketed his money, I don't think they'd be bothering him right now.
Yeah, I don't think so either, because Wall Street Bets has been around for a long time.
Right.
But this shit, The GameStop shit is what put it on like mass media radar,
Yeah,
that
that's what
and
he's
put it
paying
under
for.
that scrutiny.
Yeah, it's the publicizing it that did it. That one, and that, I get it. He did that was, I think, the right thing to do, because so many people got to capitalize on it, and of course, the more people with more revenue is, to me, that's just an all around good thing. You know what I'm saying? I can't find a way to be mad at a bunch of people making a bunch of money.
Nah, not at all.
I love it. You know what I mean? And I'm making sure that I'm keeping my eye on all of this shit for any type of opportunity to capitalize wherever I can. Period. You know what I'm saying? And I'm also going to teach anybody who will listen. I'm going to teach them to do the same thing. I'm going to show them my examples and all of that. We're just going to this is the way that we do it. Period. I don't think there's any other low impact, high reward way to get access to this type of revenue. I think this is the best way that we have available to us right now, hands down. Period.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
Yeah, it is, and us, using that to curate our atmosphere so that we can be more creative and create intellectual properties. That's a close second, because intellectual property is infinitely scalable right now at this stage in human existence. Infinitely scalable. Anything that you make that can be impactful, there's no better time to do it than now. You've never been able to reach more people in less time with less effort than you can right now. So stock market
With the less
extraction.
cost too.
Yeah, with less
I'm
cost, absolutely. Everything that is cheaper now, all the video cameras,
Yep.
equipment, everything that you need to get that shit out to people. Amazon will print your book, whether you know how to write good or not. It doesn't matter anymore. It just takes the effort to get it out there. And if you really have an opportunity to impact people, it's now. It's now or never. Extract from the stock market and invest in intellectual property. I'm To me, I mean, that this is a twofold. This is a two-pronged attack that's almost guaranteed for just about anybody. I mean, because there's a niche for literally everything. There's a market for literally everything. Even if you customize fucking Crocs, there's a few thousand people who will watch your videos about customizing Crocs and buy them shits from you and buy a book on how to customize Crocs. Get just guaranteed. There's 7 or 8 thousand people that's totally down with you if you put in the time and effort to create the content and be authentic and deliver it to them. So no matter what it is that you're trying to get into, take the money out of the stock market and invest in intellectual property. Period. That's the best advice I could give anybody for anything right now.
And it's not all your eggs in one basket, because if your intellectual property doesn't work out and you got some money in the market, somebody's going to use your money to make more money, and their idea is going to work out, and
Right.
you'll get a payday for it. So you all your bases are covered.
Right.
And when you think about it in that term, the world seems more fair and more secure, and it feels like there's more opportunity, and it's the abundance mind state instead of the scarcity mind state. So you're thinking about how you're gonna have enough time to try to do all the things that you're trying to do and that you got ideas for this wealth that you're making, rather than spending all your time thinking about how you're barely gonna have enough that you need to make it by, because you're just relying on, a single job, and
Right.
then keeping up with all the things that you think you need to spend your money on in order to be, a functioning proper adult in this society. You know what I'm saying? I still got insulation tape all over my car. I got to vacuum water out of that bitch every time it rains if I forget to put the tarp on it. I don't care. I don't care. Fuck it. That's fine. It could be an ugly car.
It is what it
Now,
is.
based on what I made and what I have in the bank right now, I'm supposed to have a certain kind of car. Why? Why? I need that for what? To show it off to somebody else. And it's that kind of thinking. Nah, man. I'd rather get this thing going that we got planned and let that money stay there and work, instead of
Yeah.
take it out to buy the car that I'm supposed to have.
Right. 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 That's just objectively the best idea outside of the system of insecurity and keeping up with the Joneses and shit like that. You're prolonging satisfaction, which is also a proven method to improve yourself and get to longer term, bigger rewards later. Everything about that spells huge success down the road. rather than I got a cool pair of sneakers today, but I ate ramen noodles for 3 weeks.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And no, and there's a lot of suffering. We can attribute it to all these other things and have these, ridiculously, tangential conversations that touch on everything. And what it really boils down to for a lot of us is we're spending our money on dumb shit and we're not putting our money into things that can actually get us more money.
Right.
Most, I would say, most Americans live that way, and most of us complain that we don't have enough money and that it's a struggle and we don't know how we're going to make it. And it ain't even a matter of access, it's a matter of management. And nobody is teaching us, how to do it better. And if your parents didn't know how to do it, then they weren't able to teach you. And when you go to school, they're not teaching you conflict resolution, they're not teaching you how to de-escalate and get along with people. Most of us are socialized in school by either bullying or being bullied, or finding a way to, that, like, that's the degree of social, but it's not like how to be functional and how to deal with shit that's real meaningful. Or, they'll teach you like about a checkbook and how to balance a checkbook like anybody still fucking writes checks. but
Right.
but yo, what about the stock market? What about residual income? What about you're being educated to be a desperate worker, just smart enough to be able to work the machines, but to always be desperate enough that you keep showing up and you'll be willing to do the job no matter what it is, with
Right.
no other plan. And as long as you could be stuck in that condition and exploited, you don't have a lot of influence or a lot of say, about how things are done. You kind of got to take what you can get. And that's okay for a time. But if none of us get a plan of how to get around that so that we're not just taking what we can get, um, life can be a lot more miserable, you know? But it just sucks because I think a lot of people are in a negative headspace and they hate life and they don't see any opportunity to progress because they're really just trapped in that kind of thinking, and they're not thinking about um, how to manage shit in a more um, productive and beneficial way. Um, you know. But I don't know, man. We're at 3 hours. I'm running on empty. I can't even think straight anymore. I
Well, look,
think I was minding the thought there, but it drifted. I
well,
think I think you made the point. You got the point across. I think it was sufficient.
yeah, I think we're doing it. It's a mighty work that we're undertaking, but it's going to pay off. It's already, honestly, it's already paid off. It's already paid off. I'm already seeing myself in a better place for reasons connected to mining these ideas and working out these thoughts and committing to having these conversations that we're doing. It's changing things, not only for us, for other people too, from what they're telling me, from listening to this shit and having to wrestle with these concepts that we're laying out. So it's doing the work that we intended it to do. You know what I mean? And it's only as long, I think, as long as we stick to it, as long as we give it the same amount of time and effort and scale up whenever possible, like we're doing now, catching these extras, and it matters, bro. Every bit of it matters, and it's bigger than the pieces we're putting into it. It's going to end up much larger than that in the long run. So I'm in a good spot. I'm happy.
That and it makes me happy to know that.
Dope, dope,
Super
man.
dope.
Well, I'm gonna wrap it up. You enjoy the rest of your night. And yeah, we'll be catching up again this weekend. We got a dope guest on the way, so I'm excited about that. I'll give you more of a heads up this weekend before we have it, but I'm looking forward to this weekend show for sure.
For sure, for sure. Always a pleasure, my brother. Until the next one.
All right, Ben. Bless.
Later.